6 o'clock, I'm calling to order this regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Bandera. We're at 511 Main Street here at City Hall. It's Tuesday, May the 3rd, 2022. Item 2 is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Will, would you lead us in prayer?
Yes, ma'am.
If no one rise for the prayer and the pledge, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together this evening, Lord. Thank you for all your many blessings, especially this beautiful day we've had. Lord, we plead with you again for rain, Lord. Most of all, Lord, we'd like to thank you for your Son who died upon the cross for our many sins. Lord, we ask for your blessings upon the Bandera City Council and also for the safe return home of everyone here this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Item 3 is visitors to be heard. No one has signed up. However, we did receive an email from Patricia Moore that she asked to be read during visitor section.
Patricia says that she would like to be present, but they are hosting an event at the Visitor Center this evening from 5 to 7, but would like for council and the public to know that May 1st through May 7th is United States celebrates National Travel and Tourism Week. As we know, Bandera's economy is based on tourism. Please join the Bandera County Convention and Visitors Bureau as we celebrate our robust tourism industry. Recently updated research conducted by the Governor's Office on the Economic Development Tourism Division for 2021 indicate the following. Direct travel spending, $19.5 million. Employees, 330 people. Direct earnings, $9.8 million. And local taxes, $1.5 million.
That's for Bandera County. Thank you. Item 4 is the consent agenda. Item A, approval of minutes from the March 23rd, 2022 meeting. Item B, second reading of a resolution allocating $42,500 to the City of Bandera for half of the principal of the Texas Water Development Board loan for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Darcy?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second? Christine, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item 5 is staff reports. Item A, the Public Works Department.
Dear Mayor, City Council, I'm going to go from quarterly from 1 January to 30 March 2022. Public Works generated 273 work orders. I'm going to start off with the wastewater report. Violations that we received from TCQ were resolved. We had no fines, no further action going to be done at the wastewater plant. I don't know if you're all aware, we also discontinued the sales of effluent water from the wastewater plant as well. It wasn't, well, there's a lot of money was being lost during that process. During 3 months, all weekly water samples from the wastewater plant came back clear. We placed all the floats in a wet well at the plant due to malfunctions. Started a monthly wastewater lift station maintenance and cleaning program to help with our infrastructure, blah, blah. We painted the exterior of all the buildings at the wastewater plant. That's about all the wastewater plant right now. We go to the water department. We've been working on a solution at Dallas ground storage tank. It has a leak. We have 3 contracted bids, and we'll discuss that tonight. We have a resolution or some bids for that. The mobile elevated water tower project starts this week, and it's going to be completion in 1 year. All the monthly back key water samples for the water side all passed the standards of the state. We did 10 new water services, including a 6-inch fire protection line for a sprinkler system for Lowe's grocery store. The city did. Once a month, meter box repair and replacement as generated by when we do the meter reads. We can see what kind of damage and what we replace, so that's being taken place now. All monthly, quarterly, annual reports are complete and up to date for the water side as well. So So now we move on to parks. We're painting the restrooms in city parks inside. We finished up the outside of the 11th Street Park today. We power washed all the equipment, concrete, slabs. We've been working on heritage, trimmed all trees and continued improvements to all city parks. Streets, we implemented once a week. We go out and do road repair. That's just doing patches. And we're going to further side of getting repairs, or the roads that are going to be done longer distance. We're doing them roads first and working our way in. We hired a new public work employee named Charlie Wolf. His primary job will be park upkeep and projects that improve city parks and cleaners. During the time frame, we had no accidents with any city employees.
Thank you.
Questions or comments, council? Yes, Darcy.
Was that 2 or 3 bids? I know we're gonna go.
We had 3 bids,
3, okay.
but
Yeah, 3.
we had a total of 3 bids.
One may have came in late, I don't know if it made it to the packet tonight.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure my notes were correct. That was it.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Yes, Tony?
So, thank you, Lance, I appreciate the update. I know you've been here quite a while, and we used to do quarterly reports all the time, and I know you're getting your footing with the guys, but we, as a council, each year seem to come up at budget time and talk about how Department of Public Works is a 24/7 job, and that, y'all are the reason that we're here. You're the reason we're the municipality, is to provide services. One of the main reasons. And we struggle because we don't really, we're looking for out of the box on how to make things better and more efficient for your crew, and how you can do more, and maybe, not just pay or compensation, but if that's what's needed to get your crew stronger and have more licensing and do more things in-house, or have more of a cohesive working relationship, which I know we have a great relationship with our city engineer now, but what is it that you need to take your department to the next level?
The budget, that's what we're gonna start talking about Friday. Me and the mayor are gonna sit down and look at things. Obviously, the training, we have 7 employees and we only have $1,500 worth of training. Well, state training is $500 a class.
Right.
And then you get gone for 3 days, blah, blah, so it's.
And if you're gone for 3 days, y'all are already running tight
If they're gonna
numbers.
work in the water industry or wastewater, you decide they have to be licensed, This way, not just to cover us for legality, but they take responsibility if they have a license as well. Take the job a lot more serious.
Right.
We do have a incentive program, which I think is helping them with the pay increase per license, so that's good that we're doing that. Then, equipment replacement we need to talk about.
Yeah, maintenance and replacement probably. Just one more piece on the personnel thing. I know that, then when you're working on a good day and everybody's showing up at work and nobody's gone to training and nobody's on vacation, there's probably more than enough to do for a full crew. But I guess I would like more of a planning idea of what bigger projects you have in the long run, on what you're looking at to take. So like, for instance, if you ask budget-wise to get another full-time employee or another placement, and how would you work those people, and what do you plan to do with that extra slot? Because sometimes, what I'm saying is sometimes you probably have bare minimum to do with the crew that you've got, but you could do a lot more with more employees, but then we also have emergency situations. So I'm looking for more of a planning perspective.
Yeah, like I said, we hired this new employee, and he's gonna be specifically just for the parks. So we have a daily plan for him every day, where he does a set routine every day, so we know we have all the stuff in the parks are up to that standard that we're looking for. The water department, you can be doing water one day, potholes the next day, because we only have one other licensed wastewater besides John, is Brian. So I got another person to take the class, and as soon as he is approved from the state, at the time, working wastewater, he's gonna get a license as well. This way, we do rotations every other week, someone's gotta work the wastewater plant, somebody's gotta be there 7 days a week.
Right.
So now we have another person there, hopefully within the next month and a half, 2 months.
Okay, well, it's good to hear about the park thing, and I know this is perfect timing for that. Throw them right into the fire with the busy season.
It's grass mowing time.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Rebecca?
Thank you. I apologize, everyone, for coming in late. And I also apologize if you guys covered this, but Lance, specifically, you just mentioned mowing, and I just think it's worth mentioning to be clear that everyone's communicating and training properly, that you and your crew are aware of the Flood Infrastructure Fund project with the riparian restoration and the stewardship practices, especially along the riverbank, that you all are aware of that plan, and also the that initial report that was done on the city park with the Parks and Wildlife, River Authority, Hill Country Alliance, and the city, that all of those practices are coming through in the training with your city folks, and that that's taken into consideration.
Unfortunately, Terry is my foreman, and he's really well with new people, and he makes sure things are done properly, and trains them and makes sure they know what they're doing. But there's always error sometimes, hit the herbicide on the wrong area, but that's not gonna happen. We hope not.
So who would he go to that,
To have those reports.
to double check
Yeah,
what's happening?
I'll make myself a note to follow up with Jill or whoever I need to follow up with, that both of those project reports are with your department, with you, and so you can disseminate that information where you need to. Thanks.
Darcy?
And along these lines as well, it sounds like y'all need more money for training, and that's something, of course, we'll get into, I'm sure. But I would like to also have a feel when we do start talking about it, is how, I assume it's all guys that work over there, how your guys would feel about signing like a year-long contract maybe, because it's $500 to send them to that one class, right?
Right, yes.
So if they would sign like a 1-year contract after completing school to stay, so that we're not throwing
Maybe
money
an
and they
advanced
move.
license, but the basic entry level, I wouldn't, because it's kind of like our thing, we need to have them, if they're gonna work in water, wastewater, at least have the minimum license.
Mhm.
This way we got a good feel if they're gonna stay,
Okay,
because this following license is a 3-year wait anyways.
okay.
So, just do that initial hit and see where they're at with it, because, I don't think the tests are hard, but a lot of people can't even pass the state test,
Sure.
And if we're wasting money, keep proceeding, we have to swing off the next license, that's what we say, now we're holding the fire.
And I can say, I'd like to see that personally when we, especially the advanced licensing, when we're spending more than $500 isn't all that much in,
Well, they've got the lodging and
perspective.
meals and.
Sure, but as we start to get further in the advanced licensing and stuff like that, I'd like to see, contracts with the employees for them to stay. A year's not a crazy amount, but I hate to, it's just like with law enforcement, you train up people, and even in my office, train up people and then they move because we're small counties, and yeah, you can make more money at Bear County. Then you start paying for these licensures, they're ready to be hired somewhere else, so let's make sure we can retain these people here. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So if you can get a feel for that, that'd be great for me.
Comments or questions, anybody?
Who's our floodplains administrator now?
Ma'am?
Who's our floodplains administrator, or was it?
Ardora?
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Y'all, good night.
Thank you, Lance.
Okay, item B is the marshal's office. Marshal Bell?
Good evening, everybody. I've provided y'all with a different level of documentation than normal. I normally condense everything down quite a bit, but this time I'm kind of giving you the full run of it a little bit, to show you just exactly how much really goes on over a 3-month period, just for you to look at. And I've got kind of a highlight that tells more somewhat of the story. For the January, February, March quarter, the main highlights that we had one subject that we'd already arrested once during this quarter for DWI, Deputy Overleckner, had arrested, I believe, on New Year's Eve. Decided instead of pulling over like he did before, he was gonna make a run for it. And when he did finally pull over, it took Deputy Smith and 2 troopers, and then finally myself to get him subdued because he wanted to fight. Oddly enough, he had just gotten probation that morning for the DWI he got back on New Year's. He was taken into custody eventually and charged with resisting arrest, DWI second with open container, evading arrest or detention, and resisting arrest. Recovered stolen rifle that I recovered turned into a large organized theft ring in 4 different counties in East Texas with 4 different subjects arrested and charged with organized crime and theft, $30,000 to $150,000. Deputy Mike Smith received a letter of commendation. I've included a copy of it to kind of expedite things along so y'all can read, but it was some excellent work that he did in dealing with the suicidal subject back on December the 31st.
Will, can I stop you for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
The first thing you were talking about, how did that originate? Was it a traffic stop?
Yes. He was driving at a high rate of speed and yelling and hollering up at cars going by headed down 16.
So would you say that when people are upset about getting stopped for things, that's often how officers may catch giant things like what y'all stumbled upon?
Exactly.
I just wanted to
We
verify.
don't generally have many pursuits here, but we did in this period. We had 2, and they were both repeat.
So this arrest report count, so the 7 total, is that all one person? I mean, cause I'm sort of being facetious because all those little things you just listed off seem to be all the different rows. But was that 7 arrests or 7 charges?
7 charges.
Okay, that's what I want, that's really what I want. I'm just,
We had a burglary of a vehicle case from March 8th that Deputy Heidelberg has managed to identify the suspect and gotten warrants for him. He had fled to another city, Corpus, but I just learned this morning that he was back in the area, and so we're actively searching for him now. We had a missing medically compromised female several Sundays ago. Once I was notified of it, we got in touch with the Bandera Fire and Rescue, and both Chief Kuntz and Jeff Gilson called out about 15 of their members who immediately came up here to the fire station, and they were the epitome of teamwork and cooperation. And within about an hour and 10 minutes, one of their members had located the lady who was not in her mental faculties due to a stroke and blood sugar issues and stuff like that, and got her found, got her checked out by EMS and returned to her family, and all in all, just the best possible outcome. It might not have turned out that good if we didn't have such a good fire rescue squad and good cooperation with them. So I certainly, if you see any of them, pat on the back is well deserved, and something they don't get as often as they should. Certainly not from the police, so I'm working on that myself. Deputy Overleckner located a suspicious person behind a local business, and during an investigation, he discovered a large quantity of methamphetamine, 8.5 grams, as a matter of fact. That subject was taken into custody and charged with POCS, penalty group 1. If we can just get him trained to take pictures of said subject and the drugs, I can provide visual aids like others do. The other short pursuit Deputy Smith had was a subject coming through town. Turns out that it was another one that he'd DWI'd in the past. And that one was, he took off and fled through town. He pulled over just right outside of town on Montague. Took the time to get he wasn't actually drunk this time. His partner in the car was drunk. But once they got pulled over, they swapped seats. Which was painfully obvious as the 2 grown men trying to change seats on the side of the road in front of a patrol car.
If I didn't have to deal with them every day, I'd be surprised.
But Like I said, the passenger was intoxicated, and the driver had a warrant out of Jackson County for DWI, I imagine that, and escaped from custody. So Mike didn't add extra charges to him, he just arrested the passenger for the PI and charged the one who was driving with the escape from custody and the DWI warrant he already had. We had 79 traffic stops for the period, 1,230 security checks. I know that most of y'all have already heard, if not all, that Deputy Mike Smith has resigned and has left us to go back to the Huntsville area for family obligations, and he will certainly be missed, especially if you read the commendation letter. The level of work and service that he provided and the experience is hard to replace. I would like to announce that National Police Week is May 15th through the 21st. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Police Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. The Bandera American Legion is planning to hold a 24-hour vigil on the steps of the courthouse beginning Sunday, May 15th at 6 a.m. and going till Monday, May 16th at 6 a.m. I will be standing watch for at least 1 hour of that 24 hours, as well as several of the deputies. It's a sober reminder that Texas used to didn't have the distinction of being the #1 in the nation and law enforcement officers killed, but this is, I believe, our 3rd or 4th year that we're holding that title, and we're at 23 so far. And that's about, I believe, double digits for 2nd place. So it's something to think about. Also, the Memorial Day Parade is May the 28th at 11 a.m. So we're kind of, those numbers of folks coming out to spectate that have kind of been going downhill a little bit, and that's a hard fact that I really hate. So be sure to spread the word, please, let everybody know that we need to come out and remember why we get to do what we get to do every day.
I could be wrong, but I think the chamber is doing an actual themed parade for, like, it's supposed to be about, it used to be about Memorial Day assumed all the time, but then floats and things got away from that. And so now they've actually named it, I believe.
Something about the never forgotten or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's never forgotten or something, but it's something very specific. So hopefully the overall theme of the parade will give the reason for the.
Hopefully they'll push that out and get that publicized. Like I said,
Yeah.
it used to be, and I should say used to be, in the last 9 years, it's been a big turnout. And it's kind of going downhill. And like I said, I really hate that. So, y'all have any questions for me?
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Will.
I do, I'm sorry. I do. It's not about Marshall's report. Are we doing code enforcement?
Yeah, it's.
Okay, it's later. Never mind, go ahead. You're good. You're off the hook.
Yeah.
Got it.
So the municipal court report is in your packet like always, so we'll go on to,
Well, I want to call council's attention
Yeah.
to one thing. If you look down here at the court revenue of $50,137.70, this is through March, and that's 50% of our budget year. The actual projected budget for the court was $63,000, so they're well above where we expected them to be at this time of year. That's the only comment I wanted to make.
I think I got.
Item D is code enforcement.
Oh, well, wait, if we were moving on, I did have a question. Does that, we had hired that collection company, right? So are they working on, is that where
Yes.
these numbers, is that why there is an improvement, is because we've got that service, or?
We've only gotten $1,300 from them for the court. We've not collected anything for utility yet.
Okay,
So I think it's just pursuit, or perhaps even the threat of a collection agency. I don't really know, but once a collection agency gets involved, they would get a portion of those proceeds. However, we're not paying them, so.
okay.
Other questions about court?
Also, income tax tends to spike up the revenue income on Tri-City historically.
Okay, now we're going to the code enforcement.
Yeah, I didn't get that section.
Deputy Heidelberg, of course, there's code enforcement numbers included in the paperwork that you got on the marshal's report, because he tracks his stuff on the same software, but he has provided me a monthly report for each month. And he has unfortunately been having to do double duty all 3 of these months. So he is doing daytime patrol as well as code enforcement, so actually not as much code enforcement going on. And I've seen some of that. I was remarking to the mayor earlier that I was out today, was going to take some pictures of some things that had been improving, some houses, I believe that Mayor Pro Tem Gibson had spoke about that had improved, and I've noticed today are sliding a little bit backwards due to that. But for the month of January, Deputy Heidelberg approved 5 sign permits, 1 banner permit, 2 plumbing permits, 2 mechanical HVAC permits, 2 building permits, 2 sound permits, 2 electric permits, a gas test permit, a fire alarm permit, an irrigation permit, additional permit for a total of 20 permits. He conducted 3 inspections regarding proposed construction, investigated and either negated or confirmed 4 violations for various code violations, and investigated and negated 1 residential building permit violation. Of course, also covers when the deputy is needed. He broke down his calls, and I can go through each month like that. Y'all believe y'all have the numbers on this. Do y'all have any specific code enforcement that wasn't related to the item on the agenda?
Well, it's related, but might be better for Earl to explain, but I'm just curious, when he issues permits, building permits primarily, electrical, plumbing, whatever it may be, what's his involvement in that?
Well, anything that has to go through Bureau Veritas, he does the intake and checks the minimum things, the setbacks and stuff like that. And as long as it meets the setback requirements and the actual ordinance requirements, then he has it sent off to BV for their approval. That's been a common problem with one particular one that we had several ones back, is a whole lot of personal subjective opinions about it, and that's what we don't want involved in. That's what my understanding was, is that we don't want that involved in this process. We don't care how you think the sign ought to look or how your house ought to look, as long as it fits into our ordinances.
But specifically, say on building permits, anything that Bureau Veritas is involved in, what is his involvement, meaning Earl's or the code enforcement officer?
Like I said,
What would he do actually?
Strictly make sure that it conforms to our codes that we require. Like I said, setbacks and things that we amend things, just like we've just gone through recently. We've gone up to the 2018 building codes, but we have certain things that I'm not versed on it like Earl is.
Okay,
100% correct, but what he's supposed to do is review their application and make sure what they're doing on face value conforms to the Bandera city ordinances. And if it does, forwards it on to BV, and they do the actual plan review to make sure that it's, because he's not a mechanical engineer.
Right.
You know,
So he's more involved in the paperwork process,
that's
so to
a fair
speak.
statement, yes.
and then just signs off once Bureau Veritas inspects.
Understood.
He just issues the permit.
Correct.
Okay.
In regard to what you just said, Will, about Earl checking that the plans conform to local ordinances, are they giving out the outdoor lighting information?
I assume we're still, it was when Jimmy was here, and I've stressed that to Earl when Earl took over.
Yeah.
So I haven't gone back and I know this sounds negative, but it's certainly not. Earl is the slow and steady wins the race. If you set him on a course, he generally maintains that.
Good.
And he was given that information. I can certainly double check and get back with you, make sure that he is on top of that.
And then as well, just with our new, with the master plan and our new local codes, those changed setbacks and things like that. So how is he doing with the new development codes?
He's working on getting up to speed. I mean, it's, as I understand it, it's quite a bit,
As long as he's not enforcing the old codes.
no, I wouldn't expect that to be a problem. He's working on getting up to speed on it. He was excited about the new building codes and seemed excited about the simple city stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
Because that piece, Bureau Veritas isn't gonna be looking at our master plan and development codes. They're not gonna be looking at our outdoor lighting ordinances. Those pieces are only gonna have the impact up front as they need to if Earl's the one doing that.
Correct.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Tony?
So I'm gonna try this idea again, since we have more people in place, they're more stable. So I personally, when it comes to code enforcement, and when it comes to the city, because we are small, I would like to see us be more cross-trained. I would like to see the Department of Public Works trained in our ordinances. They drive this city at least once a month. They're all over the city. They should have their eyes on what's going on, and they read meters. They go to every single address often. So they should be the ones that if they see a new building going up, if they see some sort of construction, they're here on the weekends. The reserve deputies are here on the weekends, because if we continue to just have one code enforcement officer Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, we're not going to be able to consistently and fairly enforce our codes across the board. And it has been an issue in the past, not any one particular fault, it's just the way it is, because, things happen on the weekends that have to get reported, and if we don't have a code enforcement officer and something's happening that's violating our local codes, I would expect the deputies to handle that, or Department of Public Works on the people that are on call and around. So I would kind of like to see some sort of process or procedure or cross-training, so that the more eyes are on the city to apply fairness, and not just somebody has a nosy neighbor and they're the ones that get called on all the time, because the one neighbor is the one reporting it. So
We have an entire agenda item about this, item G. Could that conversation wait until then, please?
Okay.
It's about code enforcement, strictly about code
Okay.
enforcement. Thank you. Okay, anything else from council? Code enforcement, permitting? Okay, thank you, Earl.
Yes,
Thank you, Will.
yes.
Will,
appreciate it.
we're talking about Earl all night. Council, item 6 is discussion and possible action on the following items. Council, with your permission, I would like to allow Roy to go ahead and give his presentation. He's a little under the weather, and I'd like to get him up and back to the house, with his feet back up. Item F, let me read. Item F, update on Heritage Park project by Roy Dugas to discuss new project that needs to take place because the previous contractor backed out. Authorization for the mayor to enter into an agreement with a new contractor not to exceed $10,000. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you. Do y'all have this in your,
No.
no?
Oh.
It was in the other
No.
one.
It was in the other
It was
one.
in the other one.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right.
Have it.
So basically, what we're trying to do, first of all, I'm glad to be here to see y'all.
Good
Hi,
to
Easter
you're
wasn't
here too, Roy.
Easter wasn't a good day for me, and hats off to our EMTs that kept me alive to get to the hospital, and then all the people at this hospital who worked diligently to save me. So it was a great day for me and an eye opener. So anyway, I'm just happy to be here. But on this project here, we originally were going to have a curb put in there, and when we got to looking at it, we figured the curb was gonna make a trip hazard, it was gonna be falling right in with the deal, we had to do a wheelchair access, so we ran into a bunch of problems with that. So our solution came up is to remove all of the brick, and I apologize if the flyer's not in there, but we're gonna remove all of the brick and go back with granite and slope it up to the tree trunk to allow for drainage, just a slight slope that will be handicap accessible, and then it'll make it more functional. and it'll do the job of covering the roots and making it a safe place. Go ahead.
Is that only the bricks that are out of whack,
No, we're
or
gonna-
all bricks?
We're gonna remove them all. And then, what we're doing is one of the, we're gonna leave some of the brick, and we're gonna keep all the bricks that have names on them, because those are
Just
some of the
like
first
central
contributors.
path.
Yeah, and we're gonna put it up one side there to where they can be read, all in a row. Okay, those people that helped put that park in the first time. And then what we're gonna do basically is, we talked about it, and I addressed y'all, and it won't be part of this project, but it needs to be considered. We're gonna keep the first, say, 8 rows from the sidewalk in, you know, from the sidewalk in, and those actually go up to the historical markers, okay? And what we're gonna do with that is, on the courthouse lawn, you've gotta be lived and died to get on that world champion monument. But we have a lot of world champions here, a lot of champions who decided to live in Bandera, who I think we need to recognize because they chose Bandera as their residence. You know, Larry Mahan lived here at one time, you know. We've got some really, really good people, and that's a feather in our hat. And we need to me, we need to claim those. There were some here that are just, you know, they were just here and kind of unrecognized. So what I did is I employed the Bandera Cowgirls to help me with that project, to find those people and contact them and tell them we want you to be part of our Cowboy Capital statement, you know. And also a lot of the cowgirls, there's a lot of cowgirls that went unrecognized. So we're gonna look at that, you know, as a part of the scope of this project. So my suggestion was, and it's in the deal, and I've talked with the contractor, is we're gonna leave that first 6 rows up to the historical markers, and it'll give you a good place to stand and read the markers. That'll be even better there. And the roots are not invasive right there, so that's a nice area that we can capture. And then that'll give us, you know, down the line, we're really gonna keep getting more people that wanna come to live in Bandera, so we're gonna keep putting those people in there. So when you look at the Cowboy Capital War, you look down and say, wow, look at all these cowboys and cowgirls. So it's gonna really help us out. And I don't know if y'all know it or not, but Bandera received an award from True West magazine, Bandera, best place to live like the Old West. And that's from the True West magazine. And also they got the award, Bandera named one of the top 10 Western towns by True West magazine. And in Europe, we're up to number 3. So they know about us, and we're a real good destination, so I think it's well worth the investment to kind of show off some of the people who chose to live in Bandera, the cowboys, the cowgirls, and I think this is our opportunity, and plus to clean up the situation that we have here. So basically, we're gonna take the bricks out, we're gonna leave that first 6 rows, we're gonna save all of the bricks with names, we're gonna put a place for them where they can be recognized, you know, and then the other ones, we're just gonna let everything go from the sidewalk up to the tree trunk. So we'll take care of the root situation, we won't have any trip hazards or anything. And so he is gonna move, we talked about it, we're gonna move that one marker from the side street, and that'll be moved to the front left. So you'll have 2 markers on each side, historical markers. And that'll make it balance out and everything like that. And so I noticed that the city has already trimmed the trees, so that'll be out of the contract. They did an excellent job, it looks great. Did a super job. So basically, looking at the agreement with him, it's we're gonna remove all unmarked bricks from around the trees, leaving the bricks with the names and the bricks for specified areas. Unused bricks will be delivered to the city yard. We'll transport those out, or he will. We're gonna relocate the historical marker from the right side to the left front of the park. We're gonna replace the bricks that were moved and use a crushed limestone or a crushed granite, and that'll be wetted and packed. It'll be a real firm, a nice surface. So I think in the final cost on that I just checked with him before I came up here, was $7,600. So they allowed not to exceed 10, so we're well under budget.
Go ahead, Jerry, then
I had asked the question before, but I'll ask it again. Is there any reason that our Public Works Department is not capable of doing that job? It sounds like a lot of manual labor.
Yeah,
or at least assist to
Well, that-
reduce the cost
yeah,
greatly. What's your thoughts on that?
well, it could be done.
For free?
I mean, I'm open, I just wanted to see it done, and, you know, I came up with the deal and had a proposal, and I have a guy who wants to do it, so if you choose not to use him, that's your decision, you know, to do it. But he's a demolition, so he can handle that, and then one of the things that he's talked about is, rather than just get small quantities of it, he's gonna get actually a truckload, and it would be emptied in one of the parking spaces there, and then he's got his skid loader, and he would move all that material in, and then they would wet it and do the correct procedure on packing it down. We did, when we did the gunfighting deal at the Rattlesnake Ridge at the visitor center, we did that. We put in granite. They talked about wood and concrete and all this stuff, and the crushed granite it's just as hard as concrete. And it makes an excellent work surface and everything, and it turned out to be the best way to go, so.
And it's
So if
pretty-
y'all, if the city elects to do it, I'm okay with that.
I personally don't think that asking Public Works to do this is a good idea at this time. Number one, they're shorthanded. Number two, this is going to be a lengthy project. It's not gonna be one day, just throw some dirt in there kind of a thing. And I myself would be in favor of having someone who actually has the time, the equipment,
Yeah.
and the resources to do it. Yes,
Yeah.
Tony?
The time, the equipment, the resources, the knowledge, the experience.
Yeah.
And we're paying, it's not like the city workers work for free. We pay them to do a job that they are licensed to do and have to do. So they're either doing that or doing something else. So, I mean, to me, it's more efficient to pay somebody that knows what they're doing and let them continue working Department of Public Works.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
and he's a landscaper, so he's experienced with this type of procedure. You know, a lot of people put granite sidewalks into this stuff, so he knows how to put it down correctly and make it a good finish, so.
Darcy?
it's-
And I completely agree with Tony on that, and I think with it being at $7,600 and possibly, going up to 10 at the max, you can't beat that, taking guys from Public Works from going and doing much needed work. I would recommend, if he's not already getting it from Medina County, to look into getting it from out there. They can get it cheaper, especially with it being from municipality, so he may be able to come in under that. And if he needs help with that, please give him my phone number.
Get what? Get what?
The crushed granite, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
the crushed granite.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, so it's just down the road.
Rebecca?
One thing that concerns me is only having one quote. So,
Well, the thing was, I tried and get landscapers up here, and most of them don't show. And I finally got the one guy, and he got cold feet and he backed out. So, I mean, if you want me to keep trying, I will, but
well, I don't, it's hard to say when I don't know who you have tried and who you haven't tried.
well, I mean, I catch landscapers that come through Bandera and say, let me have your card, I'd like for you to put a bid on this. Never hear from them. They won't even bid it.
Okay.
Is this a local
What
gentleman?
about- Well,
Do what?
Is this a
so-
local gentleman?
Yeah, I mean, just, I catch ones that are here. I don't try to get somebody in. If they're here, I said, can you give me a price? And
Somebody that's gonna care.
there's a no-show. And basically, well, part of the bid there, $5,700 is materials. So the bid is 76, so he doesn't have much labor.
5,700 in crushed
Is
granite,
the granite.
essentially?
Including what?
What materials?
That's-
Is that for the
That's
specialty
that's for-
bricks?
That's for the granite. That's for the crushed granite.
That sounds high. Well, I still, am trying to figure out, does that include the specialty bricks, or are you doing separate
No,
fundraising for that?
the bricks that we're talking about, recognition, all that, that'll be a separate project.
Oh, okay.
And that'll be, that's already been funded. We've already got donors who
Oh,
will
wow.
fund that.
Okay.
So we're working with the Bandera Cowgirls, we're looking at getting funding for that, so it won't cost the city nothing. Go ahead.
so it sounds like it's an itemized bid, and that if we can help you get the materials cheaper, then it would be cheaper, but.
Yeah,
So,
well, the thing is, he wants to use good material, and that's the whole thing.
I'm a little.
So, I mean, he's experienced with what he does, he doesn't wanna do it, cause and I'll be upfront, the guy that's doing it is my great nephew. So he has an interest in Bandera,
yeah, I think you mentioned that last time.
yeah, and so basically, he was the only one that would respond.
Only because you
What
probably
about the
hounded him.
new Texas, the design, what is the?
Well, she's
Shelley
so busy,
Moore?
she's like, she's
She
booked
doesn't have
out.
time for anything.
Yeah, she doesn't
Talk
have
to
any,
her about it.
that's just it. Yeah, I think that's the good news is that people in that business have the work. I mean, they've got a lot of work and a lot of commercial work and residential, and they're getting big money for,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're asking for a bid on this, you know,
Right.
and they're just, you know, they want a whole big project. They
Yeah.
don't want
They probably
Two or
won't get a profit margin too.
a 2 or 3 day project, something like that.
And days like this, you have to. I mean, you've got to look out for your employees, so.
Darcy,
May I make a motion?
yes, ma'am, you may.
I'd like to make a motion that we, authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with a new contractor not to exceed $10,000 for the Heritage Park project.
Tony, you second. Discussion. There's just one item that I want to add to this, and I can send you an email with our insurance requirements, but we will require insurance from your nephew for this project.
Okay.
You had your hand up, Rebecca?
Yeah, we don't have a contractor specified in the motion, and I just wanna make sure that we're thorough and that we make sure that we're getting the best deal. This started out as a, you brought this to our attention, thankfully, that, the roots at Heritage Park.
That's why I
I don't
wanted to
think
see
any
it
of
done.
us really thought we would be dropping $10,000 to repair the park necessarily, but, I just wanna make sure that we're getting,
Well, my
The
deal is
best
we need
deal.
to do something or somebody's gonna get hurt.
yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Or we're gonna have to keep redoing it.
Jerry,
Why are we not requesting funds from EDC? And correct me, I
well,
thought
let's just
that,
do the project
well,
first, and then should council vote on it, they can request funds from EDC.
so that we can't discuss this, just food for thought.
You've thrown it out there, it's food for thought, that's
Yeah.
not the discussion on the table.
I thought there was an agreement, or I was told there was an agreement between the city and EDC when that park first was built, that they would maintain it. Is that correct, or
Well-
is anybody, I'm truly asking
I
for
don't have-
history.
Well, let's leave the EDC
Yeah.
part out of this
We
now,
can bring
please,
it up.
let's go on
I
with
think we
the
should bring it up
agenda
at
item.
a later agenda.
Okay,
This,
Tony,
this has been on our agenda like 4 times, and
Let's
so,
get it
I
moving.
mean, yeah.
I
let's get it.
agree, want to get it done.
thank you. Further discussion? What is your nephew's name?
His name is Trent, Birdie, B-E-R-T-I-E-S.
Huh?
B-E-R-T-I-E-S, Trent.
Like from the trash.
All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. All right, I will get with you in the next day or two, we'll figure out everything we need to do.
Yeah.
We get a services contract from our attorney and make sure that we got it all
And
right.
then, also too, I'd like you all just, I know we talked about it before, but are y'all okay with, trying to recognize all the cowboys and cowgirls in
Oh,
the
yeah.
park? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, we are working with the Bandera cowgirls, so they're gonna do a lot of the investigating. There's a lot of ladies, that need to be recognized in the county that aren't, and a lot of cowboys too. And that's what we're looking to do, is to get those people down there, and they'll just have a brick, and each brick is, a nominal fee. So we're using Bricks R Us out of Florida. They're the ones that came up with the best price.
Thanks,
And that'll be all funded, so that won't be a consideration, but it's considered because it'll be in the city park.
Thank
You know?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, back to the top. Item A. Discussion possible action on options presented by Ardura for emergency repairs required at the Dallas Street well. Jonathan, keep it color.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good evening, council. Thank you for having me.
So we can go, ladies, you don't got signed off.
Please excuse us.
That's okay. See y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So forgive me, let me back up a little bit. We kind of started talking about this 2 weeks ago. At the time, we were having a hard time getting contractors to give us something formal that we could present to y'all. Just a lot of verbal conversations, a lot of contractors taking it a little well. So now we're back revisiting it with Dallas Street ground storage tank. We've been working very closely. In this kind of scenario, we're kind of playing middleman, advising and working with Lance and the mayor, of course, and everyone at the city on fixing and repairing the ground storage tank well. A little history, there's a leak. It's losing quite a bit of water a day. it doesn't get better, so definitely recommend getting this repaired as quick as possible. But we would like to do a repair. I hate doing Band-Aids on failing infrastructure, so we would definitely recommend a repair that would last, allow the city to buy several years to then pursue funding to then build a new ground storage tank in the future. And we'd go through a grant for that later down the line. So the options do you want me to go into like the different descriptions, Mayor, on the different approaches to repairing the well? Is that what you're envisioning?
Well, we pretty much have one basic approach, I think, that's explaining that the bypass,
Yep.
the purpose of the bypass, why the bypass is important, and how that's gonna help us proceed with this.
Of course. So we gotta take the ground storage tank offline because it's full of water and we need to do a good seal and a liner to protect the tank, so it's gotta be drained. In order to do that, there's certain requirements on your storage and supporting that higher elevation on the high pressure plane for that, I think there's 250 houses up there. So in order to do that and support the pumps and the elevated storage tank there, we would have to bypass the bolted steel ground storage tank, and the plan is, the goal, very feasible, is to rehab the concrete storage tank that's been abandoned for several years. Investigations and looking at it more and getting people that are in this trade and contractors to inspect it themselves, feel like they could clean it and disinfect it, bring it to TCEQ standards fairly quickly. And then we would fill the abandoned, now rehabbed, to meet the TCEQ standards, but not the full 9 yards, right? We would now fill that concrete ground storage tank, so that tank would now support the booster pumps that then fill the elevated storage tank to keep pressure in that side of town. So it's kind of like, in order to do the repair that we need to do on the ground storage tank, we have to make sure that we can't just take that offline immediately, that we have to make sure our ducks are in a row so that we can support the pressure on that plane and meet all the codes of the fire and safety hazards and stuff like that. So, yes ma'am,
I have a
please.
quick question
No.
just on that.
No, please.
So that piece, by spending money to do that, is that something that we can utilize as a plan B going forward if something happens? I mean, is that, now that we've put the money in that, we can use that as a...
No, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. So as mentioned, we're repairing a ground storage tank that's failing. That's going to have a lifespan with itself. So eventually the goal is funding become available, go after a grant for it. We will then have to again remove the tank, and we're going to need another way to bypass support the booster pumps, and the concrete tank would then be a viable option
Gotcha.
during that project.
Good deal.
Yes, ma'am.
Good question.
Thank you.
There are other methods to bypass.
I was just assuming it was yes.
There are other methods to bypass your ground storage tank, and we've done our investigation. In my opinion, while it is a little bit more expensive, it's the best way to go. It gives you a little bit of buffer. The last thing you want is your booster pump sucking air, which causes them to cavitate, and it just becomes a headache and a lot more of a disaster. So by having even a little bit of storage, even though it's not a lot, it gives you that buffer room of the storage in that small tank, so your well can constantly be feeding your tank while your booster pumps are turned on.
And we already know of one time we're going to use it again, and there could be more. So yeah,
Could happen in the future.
very good.
Yes, sir.
I see the start time is approximately 3 weeks for the one and 6 to 8 weeks for the other. Are they both on the same timeline as far as completion? How long the project will take? Completion
Forgive me,
date?
I believe you might be referring to Gulf, I don't have it in front of me, Gulf Coast, is that the contract from Gulf Coast?
6 to 8 weeks.
Upon starting, they estimate 6 weeks and then 8 weeks, yes, sir.
But once these companies start the project, how long is the estimate that it's going to take to complete it?
I have it in front of me now. Gulf Coast, they wouldn't be able to start. I'm not. I think they're estimating like 3 months to a week lead time, and then looking at item number 1, 3 months to 3 weeks to a month lead time within 6 to 8 weeks of start construction. So 6 to 8 weeks of construction.
Okay.
And then to replace the existing tank completely, meaning a brand new tank, number 2, They estimate that to demolish and build a new tank would take 16 to 20 weeks, is what they told me. NG painting is the rehab. That would be our recommendation to go with. It would be a rehab of the existing tank. And from start of construction, from our conversations with the Public Works Director, upon initiating contract, he would start, assuming we initiate a contract tonight, tomorrow, he would start Monday of next week.
That's great.
And then what I had down here is number 4, pending quotes from McGuire Iron. They are another tank company that's pretty popular around different cities. Their quote came in at $226,000, and it was a rehab liner, a very similar approach to number 3. They were just double the cost.
I'm sorry.
Well, I've kind of a
I
tie.
wanted to make a motion, so, but if you have a
Go
question,
ahead, Jerry,
go
and then you
ahead.
can make a motion.
What is their justification in that they're twice as much? I mean, are they stating they have better material, or what's their sell?
I talked to him, so I have the actual in-hand specs from NG Painting, and upon conversations with McGuire Iron, they are quoting the same material and same liner. My assumption, and this is purely my assumption, I have nothing against it, is they're double the price because McGuire Iron, they like to offer payment plans to cities, and so they front load the cash in the project, and then, you know, you pay me $30,000 for 6 years.
Yeah.
And so it can be attractive, and if that's the direction the city wants to go, I'll definitely provide a contract for that. My assumption, don't let me speak
That's
for
okay.
anyone, is why they kind of front load their contracts a little bit higher.
I have a question.
I trust your judgment.
The Dallas tank isn't all that old, correct?
The ground storage
It's a
one?
ground storage tank.
It's 2001 for the ground storage, 2007 for the elevated storage on Dallas Street.
I guess that my
No.
doesn't really.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, please.
No, you didn't. It's
No,
you know,
the
I just
answer to the
wanna,
first question meant she wasn't asking the second one.
yeah, I just want to make sure we're not throwing money into a hole. I mean, this is a lot of money.
No, ma'am.
I just want to make sure we're not throwing it into a hole and we don't end up having to do this, or whoever's on council, 15, 20 years down the road, because
That's a great
please God,
question.
don't let it be me, I don't want to spend in, all this money, over $100,000 again on another tank. So how can we ensure that,
Right.
Gulf Coast is gonna do us right when I feel like these tanks, and mind you, I don't know crap about it, but, it should last longer than that to me. It should last more than 20 years. We shouldn't have to be replacing the whole thing.
What is the estimated life?
So, it's a great question.
I see the smirk.
It's a great question, and it's no sarcasm. If you ask anyone that does a bolted tank, they will tell you a bolted ground storage tank has a lifespan of 20 years.
Yep.
And nail on the head, we hit the 20-year lifespan, it starts bringing a leak.
So they're like Apple, as soon as the,
That's not what I'm saying.
yeah.
You can call it a coincidence. But that is in general the lifespan for bolted tanks, about 20 years. We're working with Public Works and new Public Works Director and stuff like that is an asset management of identifying all the critical infrastructure and the age, and then start developing. Because no one wants to be in this emergency situation.
Right.
Definitely want to be more proactive rather than reactive. So now, lessons learned. Unfortunate as it is, we want to address the emergency and then get more proactive with the critical infrastructure. That means the other water tanks, including aspects at the wastewater treatment plant. Identifying when those were installed and then the preventative maintenance. That would be a liner for the other ground storage tanks, but now we're doing it in a planned setting that we chase a grant for or something like that rather than an emergency repair.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any type of warranty or on the materials and or the labor?
The warranty for the labor would be a 1-year warranty from the construction standpoint.
What about material?
Oh, a whole year.
The product they use?
That would be
for coating?
included. It would be included with the 1 year. So
No additional
no additional.
on the material? what do you estimate the life of that material is? In other words, coating, how long
No,
do you
it's
think
a,
it's
it's a
gonna
great
go?
question. Applied correctly, and we have no doubts about that from any of these contractors, being definitely all three of them qualified. Applied correctly, we would estimate a 5 to 10 year lifespan.
And there's plenty of opportunity to apply for CDBG money in that,
For what?
to get CDBG money, to get TDA money in that time period. to
Optimistically,
build.
10 years.
Yeah.
We always say 5 to 10 years.
Gotta take care of
I don't wanna assume, so can you do that again? That recoating? Can that be done a second time
You can, I
or
would
additional
not.
times? Huh?
Yeah.
I would not. You can, but I wouldn't.
It doesn't work well.
So one of
Okay.
these is for a new tank, and opposed to doing a new liner and draining the tank, going through that process. I would recommend a new bolted tank.
A new
which-
what?
A new bolted steel tank,
Which gives us the 20 years.
which would be a 20-year lifespan for the bolted steel.
Way to go.
Never mind, I think something confused me,
You
but
wanna
I'm
make a
ready, yeah,
motion?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Yes, please.
I move to,
One last.
well, there'll be discussion. I move to approve the proposal number 3 for MG painting quote to rehab in the amount of $10,000, or sorry, $100,000.
Do you have a second? Christine, discussion? Sure you had one last question?
Yeah, it's just, I believe I asked, but I just wanna hear it again. How long to get a new tank?
To get a new tank from Gulf Coast as proposed a new tank, and they were, upon starting construction, which there would be lead time on materials, once they had all the materials, they estimate 16 to 20 weeks.
And we can't wait that long.
And I would not advise it, and it's 16 to 20 weeks after getting material,
lead
which I would, right, work here in 4 months or so for material.
And we're hemorrhaging water right
Yeah.
now.
Exactly.
I
Not okay.
understand.
No, it's a fair question.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? Yes, Darcy.
I have a question for Rebecca. Why the NG instead of Gulf Coast?
That's his recommendation.
Yes, I went with the recommendation of the engineers, and if, yeah,
Shorter
it's
time.
$4,000 difference, and then the price to bypass not included, that 15,000 is only an estimate.
Thank you. That's very,
Oh, no.
you're correct.
Okay, well, thank you. It's your information I'm reading.
Would we have, and that's set, we're not gonna have, like, we've had issues with other companies before and then they come back for more, like, it's gonna be $100,000.
That's the
They're
bid.
not
They-
coming back for more.
The scope of work that they provided for 100,000 would, for what I foresee, everything that is needed. The only thing that is not included, these guys don't do, but Public Works Director, in conversations with them, would be the installing the floats, which would then tells the well and the pumps when to kick on. Would be the minor floats taking from the existing ground storage tank to the new concrete tank. Would be the only additional work I foresee within this construction project. But my understanding is that relationship's pretty good, and they're on call, I think, or already have just like an existing as needed.
So if they come back with more, you're gonna write the check?
It would have to be something unforeseen and not part of the scope that we agreed upon. If it's part of the scope and everything that's full disclosure and everyone knew about, it wouldn't be a change order. It wouldn't.
I just want it on the
Yeah.
record.
No, it's a fair question. The contractor's been out there several times. They've definitely done their due diligence. So if they come back with, "Hey, I didn't know that," we did. So it would have to be something that wouldn't be part of the scope. Would be the only change I foresee.
And Darcy, you'll notice that the next agenda item, the request is for $125,000. We also have engineering fees in all of this that were unexpected. So should we need them, then that's what that's about.
Can I ask, just for clarification, did you say when we do replace this tank that you would not do a bolted steel tank?
That is not that. No,
It's not what
that's
you
not
said?
what I
Okay,
said.
okay,
I would not add a new liner.
Oh, okay,
to this
okay.
tank.
Second time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
can we,
you.
let's vote,
Yes.
shall we? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Item B, discussion of possible Action on approving an ordinance amending the 2021-2022 budget, transferring up to $125,000 from 50-500-7510 council contingency fund to 50-501-6550 Dallas Street tank repair for the emergency repair to the Dallas Street well ground storage tank. Rebecca?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Dorothy? Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, council. Okay, item C, discussion of possible action on approving a resolution amending the Bandera Personnel Policy Manual to amend Chapter 20 for work status pay. I believe that we have discussed this. Okay, that's the budget one. This is the one that allowed for up to 10% of a different position's pay. And I think what wasn't clear last time is this isn't somebody answering the phones while somebody's on vacation. This is an employee stepping up and filling a vacant position and doing those job duties. Page 70.
2-week absence. Page
Which one?
70.
68.
Okay,
Well, it starts on 68.
got it.
Okay,
Rebecca?
yeah. I'm pretty sure I recall from what the attorney said, D is set the way it is according to local government code, so I don't
Right.
have any interest in adjusting D. Starting with E, compensation for interim acting directors. If an employee is required to perform the duties of an acting or interim director due to, okay, so is there, I don't see a mechanism in here that would set this in motion, like upon the approval of the city administrator. Or, like to affirm an official start date and then conclude it at the end. Does that make sense? Like if there needs to be a trigger or an actual official appointment of that role. Does that make sense? To anybody else?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. So let's say we have a vacant treasurer, which we do.
Right.
And we have an employee who stepped up and is doing payroll, who's doing journal entries, who is doing budget, fulfilling the role of that employee to her best of her ability, then I think that would be the situation that would trigger this particular item D.
And I, Susan, I don't want to talk about like so much specific people. I just want to see a concrete trigger, and I don't know what that language should be. Like upon approval of the city administrator, I think is simple enough.
Unless that position is city administrator.
Well, then that role would be here, right,
Well-
with the mayor.
But then we also have Jill and Will step up into those positions
I know.
too, and at that point I feel like it's only fair, because that's a lot of extra work on them. And I feel it's only fair to do, well, yeah, but you're
I don't get
elected.
paid, I know, it's all fun. How can you get a raise when you don't get paid in the
Yeah.
first place? Jerry?
Section 1 addresses that.
One of my
It does.
questions
I'm
is,
sorry.
how long would they have to be
Section 1.
acting in those positions for it to take effect? I mean, one day,
No,
a
it
week,
says-
a month?
it says-
Does it say?
I would say
Due to more than a 2-week absence.
Oh, okay, I missed
So
that.
yes, it has to be.
Okay.
Thank you, Jill.
Okay.
I see that now,
It's
section
stated
1.
in section 1
It
and it
is.
says after 2 weeks in the attachment. And this came from the attorney.
Yes.
But we still need that set date. Somebody to establish that, and to me, it should be the city administrator, unless that position.
That doesn't address it, Jill, I don't think.
Wait, I'm confused.
To distribute the amendments.
Directs the city administrator or designee to distribute the amendments to each employee. The amendment being in the attachment exhibit A that it refers to.
Yes, Jerry.
Out of, on item F, out of classification pay. So how is it gonna be determined how much that employee should get?
5%
Say that
of
It
their
says
base
not less
salary.
than 5%, up to,
Says
How
not less
much
than
is it?
10% on E.
huh?
It says not less than 10% on E.
Okay. Yeah, well, and that's what I'm getting at too, just who makes that decision and how's it made?
Again,
About
this
how
would
much
be on
they
the
really-
administrator. Again, this would be on the administrator, and
The city attorney said at the last meeting that he took these 10 and 5%, if you recall, he was here and went over this. He said that he took those 10 and 5, that was a standard, like what standard they do across the board, but it was up to council, of course, to change those numbers if
But-
you so choose.
My question is, this is not less than, so up to how much?
I
I
would
mean-
just scratch not, the words not less than, an increase of 10%, an increase of 5%.
Okay, that's
Or it could
intent,
say up to.
Up to, could be.
instead
Well, then that
of
leaves you
not
open
less
to what
than.
you wanna give them 1%, sorry.
Well, then the city
No, I didn't say
administrator,
that.
whoever decides it, will
Exactly.
designate the
Okay.
percentage.
Just leave it at 10 and 5.
well, yes, you have an administrator and you hire him for a particular reason and put that responsibility on them to stay within budget and within the program. Yes, Dorothy.
Well, I don't think necessarily the budget's gonna be the issue, cause if you have somebody that's gone, like we have a treasurer gone, you already have that part that's open, all of that budget.
Right.
I think, cause we've had issues in the past where there's preferential treatment, we don't know what kind of people we're gonna hire, unfortunately, as a city administrator between today and, 50 years from now, hopefully we can make this stuff to where it'll stay. I think personally that we should take a percentage and stick to that percentage so that there's no wiggle room in there for anybody, whether it's a city administrator, me, you, anybody else, to go in there and say, well, this is my friend, I'm gonna give them 15%. I don't like this person as much, I'm only gonna give them 5%. It should be across the board anyway. If you're doing an extra job, then X percentage. At this point, I don't necessarily have an opinion of what that should be, but it shouldn't be this or that. There shouldn't be a choice. It should be the same for everybody.
Tony.
So, I had my hand up to say the exact opposite. So, although I do understand your perspective, I'm gonna throw this out there. They're still working 40 hours a week, and if they're not working 40 hours a week, then we're hopefully compensating them a different way, whether it be overtime or comp pay time or whatever. So 40 hours a week, you're working no matter what you're doing, whether it's treasurer, whether it's answering the phones, whatever, you have a salary. So whether you're going under your knowledge, skills, and abilities for what you're hired for, or whether you're going over your knowledge, skills, and abilities for what you're hired for, still working the same amount of time, still getting the same time off. What I was gonna say with the up to is that we don't know, when we put a policy like this in place, we don't know who's filling what. So if somebody's on, maybe our most skilled employee to actually step up into the vacant role, for example, treasurer, which would be able to say, do 60% of the treasurer's job instead of hers, then that person should get compensated more. Whereas if maybe that person's on vacation and we've gotten somebody that's stepping into the role, but they can only cover they only know how to do 20% of that job. And they're doing just enough to get us till that other person comes back on vacation. I mean, all of these scenarios and knowledge, skills, and abilities come into play. Because they're not stepping into that role permanently and leaving theirs vacant. Everybody's still working the same amount of time. It's just probably a little more stressful because they're not used to it. They're being asked to do a little more, and I do believe they should be compensated. But all of these anomalies on what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, based on what's actually happening in this office, can only be answered by the one in charge, by the people that are actually in the building. So to have an up to rather than a set percentage, I believe makes more sense. So that's my 2 cents.
I think in a way, because it is based on the employee's base salary. It's not based on the salary of when we didn't have a city secretary, we had somebody step up into that position. So it's based on that person's, we didn't have the front clerk step into that position. We had somebody a little, more skilled or that had been here longer that steps into that position. So that pay is gonna be a little bit more. Whereas if we had somebody step into permitting, it's gonna be less because it takes somebody with less skill, or a different skill set. So it's gonna be less money. So I don't think, I see where you're going, and in other circumstances, I would agree with you. I'm still gonna disagree though, because it's the different skill sets are gonna be based on who the city administrator is gonna pick. They're not gonna pick our city secretary to step in necessarily for a clerk, where she's gonna get 5 or 10% or 20% of her salary. That would be great mismanagement in my estimation, for her skill level to get, a 10% additional pay to be the utility clerk. So.
That too was, my concern when I brought this up, or I brought that up last time we looked at this. A couple of things. I wanna be sure that the compensation for interim and acting directors, it's not gonna cover someone for stepping up during a vacation. I think it should only be if there is not, if that is a vacancy,
If it is a vacancy.
not an absence.
No, but my scenario was, and let me be clear, there is a vacancy in treasurer. The person that we paid to fill that can fill that job 70% of those duties, knows how to be treasurer, and we're paying them this to do that job. She goes on vacation. And so now we've got a lot more, maybe she goes, I don't know. But I'm just saying, see what I'm saying? It's like there's not, it's not gonna be the same person filling that. You could have two people, like you could have the duties of the treasurer split amongst two people. If one person knows how to do payroll and one person knows how to do accounting, then you would, then.
The reason for my comment though is just that the word absence I think it should be vacancy, because this is pertaining to someone filling a
Termination
vacant.
or,
I agree.
vacant position.
Well, I wouldn't say termination, what if somebody's on
No,
family medical leave?
that's why I backed up.
Yeah, what about medical
Vacation.
leave
And if
or
somebody's
any of
on-
that?
Yeah, sorry, if someone's
It
on
could be
family medical
vacancy
leave.
slash absent, extended absence or something, but
Yeah.
yeah.
How
Well,
about
it
just
does say
that,
more
extended
than,
absence?
it does say more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Not for
Yeah.
vacations, yeah, but you could take off.
Yeah, because they could be
Couple
out for
weeks.
maternity leave
Yeah.
for more than 2 weeks.
And I'm not
Can-
quite finished with my,
Go ahead.
if I may. Item F is concerning a little bit to me. Because of our necessity for cross-training, and this we touched on a little bit last time, but it really is, and historically has been, a part of the function of many employees to cross-train. That one clerk can step into, someone else can answer the phone, like during lunches and things like that. So this item F to me is worded way too loose, because there's nothing that really indicates that this isn't like an hour to hour type of situation, like,
I agree.
oh, well, so-and-so's not here for an hour and I had to answer their phone, so it's not clear on this one.
This too could be to temporarily perform the duties of a vacant position.
Yeah, but do you need that for E and F? Because that's essentially the same thing to me.
And then hopping back up to D, he or she will be paid at the minimum salary of the pay scale for the supervisory position. Do we even have a pay scale for a supervisory position?
Where are you?
That's in-
Or are you
Marshals.
talking about
That's
Marshall
specifically for the
as the
marshals.
supervisor?
That's Marshall's.
Yeah,
it's
D is
separate.
specifically about
Again,
the
this
marshals.
is so confusing.
What
Is that
our
correct?
city attorney told us last time is he wrote this according to local government code, and we don't have any flexibility
change it.
in this one.
D's a done deal. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, but my question on this is that based upon Will's position? Or is that another position, supervisor?
Will's the only supervisor we got in the Marshals
Okay, I
Department.
didn't know if there was another position there.
Christine,
Okay, so the difference between E and F is that E is talking about an interim director, so you're talking about like a department
Department
manager.
Right.
F, out of classification pay, you're talking about the receptionist covering for the permitting person.
You're right.
So that's why there's a difference of 10% versus 5%, number one. And that's why there's a designation of a 2-week absence for a department head, because that person then is also taking responsibilities of that department head
Okay.
for
Did you read my note?
classification.
Did you read my notes?
No, I did not, sorry.
But this is what I was I'm sorry, are you finished?
Well, but so, that's the difference between E and F, and that's why we have two different things. We have E and F, because one's talking about directors, not just
Okay.
staff.
But again, cross-training has always been essential to our small office. So if it's a matter of filling in during the week here and there, then I wouldn't even agree to F at all, because that should be an automatic.
Right, but
If
that's
it's-
why, that's why E is specifically starting with no less than a 2-week
And
absence.
so I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say is I want F to kind of mirror some of that language. There's a trigger for it. It has to be because there's a vacancy, and it has to be for
Other than
at
vacation.
least a 2-week period, a 2-week, whatever language we decide with on E, that it's mirrored in F. I realize it's not for a director's position, but that it's, I don't want to see this happening for just job sharing for regular cross-training stuff.
Right,
That doesn't happen.
But there,
Everybody
but
cross trains and everybody
I
covers
do
each
know
other's
that, I
shifts
do
in
know
the
that, but
office.
I feel like I'm
I
still,
understand where you're going with it, and it makes sense. We don't want,
I know that happens. This isn't clear though, that this will not trigger for those regular occurrences. I know people are cross-trained, they always have been, and you and the rest of the staff do a great job to assure that. I just think it needs a similar trigger.
Darcy,
And I would go further, and I agree with Rebecca, and I would go even further in saying that I would be okay with getting rid of F, and because everybody should be cross-trained, and you should cover each other, even if you have a long-term, if we're short 2 people up here in the front, you gotta do the job, and there shouldn't be an increase just for kind of lateral fulfilling, doing what Tony said, fulfilling that 40 hours of kind of doing almost the same job, even though
The bare minimum.
Joe and Jane
That's still-
have, everybody's gotta do their work. If you are stepping into a role, like when we didn't have a city secretary and somebody was able to step into that role, yes, you need to be compensated for that. If Will were to leave and we needed somebody to step into that role, yes, somebody should get an increase. If, when we don't have a city administrator, yes, there should be increases, but I don't think there should be any increase like it's outlined in F.
So I would agree that what Darcy's saying would take care of what Rebecca's concerns are if you just get rid of Beth. But the triggers are to me, the triggers in the two different ones is if an employee is required versus if an employee agrees to.
There you
So,
go.
so if an employee is required, that means we've got a director out and we're basically putting them in a position because we can't do without a director in that position for very long. And we're basically telling them, you have to do this and we're increasing your pay by this much. Whereas if you're cross-training, somebody goes out on medical leave and you're asked to, step up and do somebody else's job, it sounds like they have the right to refuse. And if they refuse it, then they don't get the pay increase, but as an incentive to get them to do it, we have this option of increasing their pay if they do that. If they step into that role temporary. And they could prove that they're worthy of the job and they get the permanent promotion and then we backfill. But whatever it is, but to me, those are the differences.
Yeah, I would agree.
go ahead.
Do
Just
you
try
feel
it.
like I don't know that I necessarily agree with completely striking it, because if it is gonna be a role that's fulfilled, not like we said, not just cross-training and regular day-to-day, I gotta cover your phone or whatever stuff. If there's an agreement, so is that agreement in writing? that it still feels really loosey-goosey to me, like it's not
That's-
fully formed yet. And I want to make this happen, I do. I'm just looking for the real structure behind it.
First of all, there should be no refusing. If Jill tells somebody up here to do a job, they by God ought to do it. And secondly, in the personnel policy, I'm
Pretty
gonna,
world you live in.
well, I'm gonna tell you, my staff better do it or they don't have a job.
I'm kidding.
And they love me, so, or at least they lie and say they do. Secondly, in all of our job descriptions says all other duties as assigned, right? Because if not, it should.
See, Jonathan,
So,
Thanks, Jonathan.
you know, so all other duties as assigned. Now, to me, that's not, hey, step up and be city secretary or be city marshal for, you know, the next 6 months. But all other duties as assigned, if, you know, the utility clerk's out, hey, permitting, I'm gonna need you to slide over and take over that. That's gonna be a duty as assigned by your boss.
Sorry,
That's already covered.
we have a council member that needs a recess.
Okay.
or I can just
council,
run real quick, whenever.
Go.
If you would like to just go,
What's happening?
who needs to go to the bathroom?
Just put it out there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. I thought it sounded. I mean, it sounded like y'all knew something was like how you said y'all all looked at the clock like he has
No.
it had to be somewhere at
No, he had
7:30.
told
So
me.
Can we hear from Jill, please?
I just
Would you like to go ahead?
No,
go ahead,
no.
Tony.
I just had one little thing about F. If the thing that bothered me the most about F is I'm not really sure what classification pay means because we don't have anything based on classification or pay scale, or we haven't done any of those things other than, you know, secretary. We know what's required as far as training goes, and treasurer, but those are all covered in E. So once you get past our directors, we're not that deep and we don't have classification pay. So to me, the way this is worded, it doesn't apply to us at all. But
So that's what I was gonna say, is it my turn? Okay.
Yes.
So that's what I was gonna say, I mean, this came from another city, obviously, and the attorney tweaked it to fit our needs. Nobody here is talking about wanting 5% pay to cover the phone over here or here or there. We're talking about not having a city treasurer since October, over 6 months, and one that came in for 30 days and that's it. So that's where this came from. We're talking about people, we don't have deputies, so we have code enforcement, cross-training on that. So I agree, you could strike out, it doesn't apply here. What does apply is people doing permanent positions, doing training to learn how to do them to keep the city afloat for months at a time.
right. So to feed on that, I would think that situation would actually fit in E because to me, the treasurer is the director of that department.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And
I
so-
would
so to
strike
me-
out what
What she
doesn't
said.
apply.
Right. So
Like
I'm just
ever.
want to make sure I'm
Right.
following because any of our really important positions are going to be covered in E. And the rest of them are, I mean, we could hire a temp to come in and,
Item F happens every day. We have
Right.
one clerk, one
So,
this.
yeah.
If this person's gone, court covers this, we cover court, you know, it's cross-trained. It's just part
I'm
of
back to
every
scratching
day.
F.
So strike
Okay,
F.
okay. And I mean,
I'd like to make a motion.
oh, yeah, are we good with the percent though?
Oh, yeah, we ought to come up with a consensus on that
I
before I
mean-
do that.
I just kind of want to say 20% and leave it alone. Especially because this defines that someone who is not on a supervisor level, because we don't have any other supervisor levels, we have those one heads of the departments. So it's going to be someone that's stepping up into a director's role, and I just say maybe 20%, and don't make it subject to.
Yeah. I'm good. I thought 20% I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought 20% sounded like a lot. I just did the math.
No.
It's not
So
a
it's
lot.
It's
That's
not.
not a lot.
So we'll-
10% is nothing.
We'll strike not less than.
Well,
Will has his hand
Will's
up.
got his hand up.
There you go.
I'm gonna try to be brief, and I'm gonna try to not say a name, but y'all know what I'm talking about. I have an employee, and he never grabs it, because he doesn't. This is all on me. Due to my situation, that I've been shorthanded, one down, now I'm two down, which has never happened in the time I've been here. And everybody around here is hiring. every department, every sheriff's office, every police department, everybody is hired. Generally, when we have an opening, we put out for it. I usually have 20 to 30 applicants within a couple of weeks. Out of those 20 to 30, 4 or 5 are interviewable, and generally, maybe the first time we interview, there'll be the right one, because I don't know if, I think y'all know, it takes the right person to work here. You can't, it's just a fact of life. We've been taking applications for this position since right around Christmas. Gotten 4 applications since Christmas. I'm relieved to tell you that I may have one possibility. Normally, I don't even look at an application unless they have an intermediate peace officer license. The one that I'm overjoyed to have to be looking at has 10 months of experience. Albeit it's 10 months in Sonora.
Everybody's gotta start somewhere.
And it's a small
That's
town.
true.
Yeah,
But,
do you want to pay for loss?
but we don't, the truth is if we start somewhere and it's on Mardi Gras weekend in Bandera, Texas, that young man or that young lady is gonna find him or her in a lot of trouble and consequently get the city of Bandera in a lot of trouble in short order. So it's hard to comprehend how quickly and easily a young man or young woman who hasn't been around the block can get into trouble with a gun and a badge and a bunch of drunk people situation. Okay. Having said all that, I'm working real hard to keep my people happy. The one that we're dealing with didn't cry, wasn't griping, wasn't nothing. He doesn't have to work here. His significant other is the breadwinner in that family. Part of my job is knowing what motivates my people. Everybody agree to that. I know what motivates him. His happiness in life is derived by his home life. If life is good as home, that's all he's cared about. If he was sweeping floors at the middle school and home life was good, life would be great. That doesn't work for me. I'm not that person, and I'm not putting him down. But if his wife said, quit your job, he'd turn in his paperwork that day. I need to keep him happy. When I knew that we were going to be in a session where he was going to be doing double duty for a while, I went to our city administrator and basically told him what I just told y'all. And he said, well, I'll get back with you. A month later, I went back and said, hey, where are we at? He said, well, give me a couple more days. And then he gave me the go-ahead. So now I've given him a temporary bump in pay because he's doing the job of 2 people and has been doing it for months.
Tom.
Oh, and you're right, but in your case, it's not 40 hours. I mean, yours is, both of those things can be round the clock. So, I get what you're saying, and that is the signs of a good manager to know what their employee's currency is, literal and figurative. But the reason for my hand up is, did you read D, and are you okay with that regarding the marshal? I mean, do you have anything that we should be concerned with on yours for Exhibit A?
Well, as I understand it, that's state law, that whether I like
Yeah.
that or not, that's.
Yeah, but
that's
it's
kinda
added, and I didn't know if that, you just knew I just want to make sure that
This
we've got
just
your buy-in.
Says that they get the salary prescribed for that position.
Yeah, I was specifically speaking to that, that's not really what we're doing in the situation I'm referring to. We're more of the.
Well, because
sort
it
of-
talks about
yeah.
pay scale, and that was where I was concerned. I mean, I get that it's quoting a government code, but, I mean, do you go, you don't go by pay scale, do you? Sorta.
Not really.
That's, okay,
Get what you get.
that was my concern, was the pay scale part.
I've
Okay.
often joked, nowhere have I ever worked more in the all other duties as assigned as applied to than here.
Are you saying you don't appreciate your IT role and the experience in which you've gotten at that level?
I'm not complaining about mine at all, I'm just saying that I've heard that for years, I've had people tell me that for years, but I never thought I would be the one that would be applying it to myself and
And
doing
others?
more.
Right.
And I'm the one to blame for it, but I just don't wanna leave that one out, because like I said, I understand how.
Right, take care of
But you would be covered under D on that one.
And I just real quick would wanna piggyback on what he said. We're, on the other side, you know, his same situation, we have had that job posted since October. We've had 3 applicants. And the previous city administrator hired one out of desperation, and it wreaked havoc in this office, and it was very cancerous, and it was terrible. So we're in a situation here where we don't have anybody wanting the job, number one, and people, if our people aren't stepping up and taking additional training, then people aren't gonna get paid. I mean, we're at a desperation
And our
state.
bills won't either.
And nobody's applying for this position. So filling it out of desperation is not the answer either, because we already did that and it caused more problems, not with just the employees, but in the computer system and errors and things that were done, so.
Gotcha. Rebecca?
For clarification, so someone has to fill the treasurer's role. Is the 20% increase on the hours worked? And it's just
Across the board.
across the
I'd say across the
board?
board.
Okay.
Where the treasurer's duties would be their primary duties because they are stepping up into that role,
Right.
right? I mean, that's just what,
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you're stepping into a supervisory role, no matter what it is within the city, that's gonna have to be your primary role anyways, you know, even though this individual is used in a couple of other departments anyways, that's still gonna have to be that primary role.
it's gonna take precedence.
So are you gonna make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Oh, yeah.
Darcy.
It'll be funky probably. I'd like to make a motion that we approve Exhibit A. Is that good enough as far as?
It's got a resolution number.
Oh, resolution well, no, it doesn't
It's
really.
still empty?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We didn't know what was gonna be approved prior to, so we have to leave it blank.
You just say resolution then.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, resolution,
regarding work pay status.
regarding work pay status, eliminating item F and amending E, taking the 10% and making it, well, let's see, cross out not less than 10% and making it salary to read salary increase of 20% of the employee's base salary.
Second? Further discussion? Yes, Tony?
And I just wanna make sure that this is specific for city admin, city secretary, Department of Public Works Director, and city treasurer. Those are our department heads.
And the marshal.
The marshal is
Has
covered
his own
under
Well, he's
ED.
covered differently, yes, those are department heads.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, item D, discussion of possible action on the resolution amending the personnel policy regarding longevity pay. That is attached to this, Jill.
So this has been on the agenda, I don't know, 3, 4, 8 times. So I added to the spreadsheet like you requested. Again, this is a benefit for employees, incentive to try to keep employees. I added 3 years, $3. So you can see at the 3 years, it would be the $504, 5 years, $5, and then 10 years, $10, which nobody has gotten to that point yet. So, that's the amendment to the spreadsheet. And, for longevity pay. Again, that's just an incentive to try to keep people here.
One-time pay at the end of the year.
One-time pay at the end of the
accumulated
year,
across-
it's lined out in this, usually it's the beginning of December because, as you know, municipality cannot have a Christmas bonus, that kind of thing, so it's given at the beginning of December as a bonus, but just called longevity pay. And this
Paid
is-
annually.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And this is something that, you know, we've tried to push council in the past to adopt for our long-term employees.
Tony,
I'd like to make a motion
yes ma'am.
to approve the change in amending the personnel policy regarding longevity pay as it states in our packet, section C, item D.
Thank you.
Section
Second,
6, item D.
Jerry?
Section 6, what did I say?
C.
We're talking about this chart right here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, well, it's written out right here and the Excel is supported.
That would be
Yes,
the
ma'am.
exhibit
Right,
that goes with the resolution, or the ordinance, I'm sorry.
discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, council. Item E, discussion of possible action on a cost of living adjustment for employees. Again, that is,
The same, y'all asked me to do some research, I did, it's on the bottom of the spreadsheet, but it's two separate things. I broke it out by year, did the national average, pulled what some other cities' wording is on their COLA increases, and that's that. And that's typically annually too, so I put it on the same spreadsheet, but it's a separate item.
and I believe the council has not, during budget time, had any sort of cost of a living adjustment since 2015 or 16. I'm not exactly sure which.
2017.
We just,
19.
17? Okay.
I
Jerry?
thought we gave raises in 19.
Yeah, but we
Yeah,
didn't
cost
call
of
it
living.
cost of
Not a cost
living.
Well, yeah, but it's still a
It
raise.
was a merit,
I mean,
It's not cost of living.
it's kind of
It's a separate.
semantics almost.
Well, no, because
Raises are
if you
raises.
budget for raises, that doesn't mean everyone's gonna get it.
True.
Darcy?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we give across the board, because that's what cost of living is, COLA adjustment of 7%. I'll get into discussion after, but 7% the COLA for employees, all city employees.
Do you have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, I have a discussion.
Oh, I'm curious why 7?
Every year?
Well, we'll
Or
get to
just
there,
this year?
but
Just this year.
First
Oh,
off,
that's,
right
okay,
here.
that was not the clarification. I was like, I ain't agreeing to that for every year. but okay.
You don't wanna do it every year.
Well, that's
Okay,
what
let's-
this is
okay,
going in, the
okay.
policy.
Hey, guys, let's keep it here. Are this COLA, is this gonna be effective with the budget year, or is this gonna be effective immediately? So let's consider that when we're talking. So we have a motion and a second for 7%. Darcy?
Okay, so COLA usually is done on a yearly basis. You don't decide to do one now and it's in perpetuity forever that they get X amount every year. I think that doesn't make sense. So you should do it every year, in my opinion. Also, yes, the budget year, but I would like us to consider something else if we could. However, when I was thinking about that and when we discussed this last time was before we had the $20,000 issue with the Dallas tank as well. You know, I'll bring up where I work, what they just did in lieu of giving us a COLA for they're gonna give us a COLA starting in October because they always do there. But, with the ARPA funds, they just gave each employee basically a bonus out of the ARPA funds. So I'd like to see that if we can come up with a creative solution, because everything has gone up, everything has gone up. We all see that, we all feel that. So if there's something that we can do that's feasible for us to do, I'd like to see us do that. I know we just took a $20,000 hit on that.
100,000.
$100,000 hit on that Dallas tank, and that hurts. But so I'd like to see if we can come up with something for the employees. But starting with the COLA for the next budget year, yes, 7% for the 1 year, and then revisit it every budget year.
Rebecca?
Okay, so I'm still not clear on why the 7%. And then also, why aren't we just addressing this in budget when we're actually looking at the numbers?
Thank you.
I really think that's a better idea.
Especially if it's for the next budget year, because we're coming up on that. And I would almost say, you could really do like a 3% right now to go into effect immediately until the end of this fiscal year, and then address what it will be for next year. So I wouldn't suggest making it retroactive for the budget year, but just from here to the end of the fiscal year, going ahead and doing something and then addressing it. Because with all the vacancies we have, surely there's money in the budget to do a 3% across the
budget is
board.
not doing badly.
Does that make
Terry
sense?
and
Mhm.
Victor.
Well, we don't even know what this is gonna cost us, the city. I mean, how could you make a decision like that without even knowing what it's gonna cost? And not only that, this is things for budget time. That's why during budget, there's an opportunity for budget requests by the departments. And I can't be a part of doing something that irresponsible, I'm sorry.
Okay, right now, I think that remember, this has been hanging out since almost last budget
Right,
year.
yeah.
This is nothing that's just come up. I don't believe 3% is gonna bankrupt the city to
Well,
council
it is.
decide to do that
What is the cost on
going
it?
forward. And then make another decision as we get further into budget.
So,
So I mean, y'all know me, whether I'm on council or whether I'm sitting in the audience, a regular cost of living and an assumed cost of living is never gonna be something I support. We are living in a very strange time. We have done increases, merit increases, and I think we as a council have done better in recent years to budget those in. But we have an administrator salary that we're not paying, and we have a treasurer salary that we're not paying right now. And I think we should very much consider what Rebecca is suggesting is, just from now to the end of the year, have a percentage increase for a COLA that takes us to, October 1st. It's not very far. We're already in May. So the next few months, and we're sitting here, we're not paying the rest of the salary, so I can't imagine us blowing the salary. So if Darcy would consider amending her motion to something lower than 7, I would consider supporting the motion.
And also just a temporary,
Just for this budget year, a one-time effective, it's effective today.
but not retro.
Effective, not retro, effective immediately the next, the beginning of the next.
Or the next pay period,
Or,
which
yeah.
will be next Monday.
There are several businesses in town that have, right now, given cost of living raises to employees because of what we're seeing right now. It's not a thing in their personnel, it's just like right now, everybody's gonna get a cost of living raise because that's the truth, cost of living went up.
And
if
we're
you're-
running 2 big positions down.
Yeah, but that's a lot of businesses are actually doing that right now with employees. Just a one-time cost of living to get people to where they can afford to come to work.
86.
thank you. So Jill just did a rough estimate that I asked her to do, and the rough estimate is 86,000 that we're saving on staff, not paying an admin, not paying a treasurer.
Just since the vacancies.
Just since the
positions.
vacancies. So I can't see that a 3% is gonna, across the board, would cost over that. So, yes, I love what Rebecca said, and like I said, come up with a creative way to help our employees, and it in no way whatsoever, is, a bad thing for us to do. We're running short. He's down 2. And in 5 seconds, he could be down 3 or 4. She's down 2. We've got to do something to keep folks. And if we do this one little thing by giving them 3% today and tell them that we're looking at a COLA in the budget, because we should look at it in budget instead of right now. I agree with that. Do this one little thing of giving them this little bump. We recognize it's costing you more to get here today. We recognize it's costing you more to buy food at the grocery store. And thank you for working for Bandera. And this is what we can do. I understand it's not much, but this is what we can do to keep you here. And thank you for working here. So it's not irresponsible whatsoever.
Tony?
And I would say that's an estimate on salary, but we're also not paying any of the insurance on those 2 positions. We're not paying, there's other.
Can you please,
There's
can you please address the
Can you
audience?
amend your motion
Oh,
and let's
okay.
move forward?
I'm sorry, I was listening to them.
So I had the floor.
Yes, ma'am, you do.
So that's a great estimate for the next few months as far as just salary, but there's more that we have in employees that we pay out of pocket to the federal government, to the, workers' comp and all of the other things on top of that. So that's the lowest possible that we're not paying out.
I'd like to amend my motion if I may.
I would like to
She's
make a
gonna amend her
comment.
motion.
Huh?
She's gonna
She has the
amend her
floor,
motion.
according to the director of the meeting,
No
Jerry.
reason to get
Okay, come on,
hostile.
let her amend her motion, and then we'll
Jeez.
move on.
Wow.
I'd like to amend my motion. Actually, I'd just like to retract my motion and do a new one.
You wanna withdraw it?
I would like to withdraw my motion and have a new motion, please. I'd like to make a motion that we, effective immediately, give a 3% COLA to all Bandera employees, effective today, through the end of the budget year, and then revisit the cost of living increase during the budget for next budget year.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's Darcy. Rebecca, I would like to ask you to amend to say effective May the 9th, because that is the first day of our next pay period. That way we don't have this hanging out.
So amended.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, Jerry?
Just a comment. I don't vote for anything without knowing what I'm voting for. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're doing it on a percentage. You don't have a clue of how much it's costing. Do what you want.
Thank you.
Totally irresponsible.
Further, okay, Darcy.
I'm voting.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Darcy, Tony, Christine, Rebecca in favor, opposed? Jerry's opposed. Thank you. Okay, item G, updated discussion on the enforcement of city ordinances. All right, Will. There are so
Back to you,
many.
Bob.
It just seems that after hours and on weekends and even during the regular patrol hours, I know we're shorthanded, I don't want to start going there, but it seems like signs of weekends are being ignored. People living in travel trailers, that happens all the time, every week. The sale of animals, we can't go around and snatch up yard sale signs because I'm not law enforcement, I'm gonna go pull them off the side of the highway.
Oh, I will.
But we have our reserves on the weekends, and as Tony was talking about earlier in the meeting, we need to have some sort of awareness of our weekend officers that these are no-nos.
In our day-to-day Department of Public Works, I mean, we've got a crew that's out in our city that they need to be more aware of, and just have a process for them to report. They don't have to be tattletales, just say, there's construction going on at this address and there's not a permit visible in the window. I mean, period.
Yeah, visible permits is a big one.
A visible permit is a big one. We don't have that yet.
Rebecca?
Also outdoor lighting,
Now that you mention that, I've been wanting to mention this at several of these little discussions. Has anybody noticed the street lamps at the strip centers?
Yes, they're out
suddenly-
of compliance.
Yeah, and they've been there.
I know. It's just, it's an ordinance that just simply doesn't seem to get enforced. And it's so, what hurts so much to me is that I fully expect that to be corrected according to our ordinance. But why didn't that property owner know before they went out and spent money to buy their new pretty lamps that they're against code?
No, that's, sorry.
And that's why I keep asking, aren't these people getting this information from the city hall when they pull their permits to do things? Because if they were, why would they go and spend that money and do it wrong and have to correct it?
Well, ultimately, it's their responsibility to find out what the ordinances are. We all know that. But, when we have the school to keep in, the football stadium lights on all night, how are you gonna, go and fault the strip center? Like, it's gotta be fair and equitable across the board.
Jerry,
Where are you referring that happened?
what happened?
The lights got put up recently.
Are you
At the
asking
strip,
me?
mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it was the mayor that mentioned the strip center specifically. I don't
Yeah, what are you
remember
referring
when.
to?
I don't know when the street lamp looking things that are in the parking lot.
Forever.
I don't know when they were put up there, but the point is, they're out of compliance.
They've been in
No.
there over 20 years.
They
Well,
have,
I didn't
thought
say
they
they just
changed
went
it.
up, Jerry, I didn't say they just
No,
went
and
up.
I'm not trying to create an argument, I'm just saying, I was just curious as to what you're talking about, because that's been there. They might have replaced some bulbs lately.
Well, they were given 5 years from the date that the ordinance went into effect. Tony?
Okay.
That's the point I'd like to make there, is that everybody was given 5 years to become compliant, because that's the average age of a fixture on a house, that they should be, for efficiency purposes, they should be changed out. And so, that's that, but I got my hand up for another reason. Are we still talking about lighting?
May I real quick?
Yeah.
In the event that bulbs are replaced, the bulbs then have to come into the wattage compliance and all of that piece too. I would imagine that some communication with the ISD could correct the issue with the lighting in the stadiums after, a coach has to go remember to shut off that switch, right? But maybe just some communication.
We're talking about the middle school stadium?
Probably both. I think that.
High school.
High school.
High school-
Yeah, I see 'em
high
from my
school's
house.
not in the city limits. High school stadium.
But I bet they still would do it if we asked them. Okay, you can, that's
I can
fine.
call them.
That's
Should
fine.
have. It
And
bugs me.
yeah, I was speaking more to like new construction pretty much, or things being upgraded and shining lights up when they make their changes.
Tony?
Okay, so I have other areas of that. So one of my concerns is the flood ordinance. We have more people living in our RV parks along the river. And although I do not have any issues with that at all whatsoever, they act like it's a small tiny home, and they have yards and picnic tables and generators and just all kinds of debris all around their campground, like it's a permanent campground that they're living in. And I was asking about the floodplains administrator piece of it, because isn't there something that states that, there's not trailers that can be left here, because all of our RV parks and our city limits are in the floodplain, so they can't just leave it there for a month and come back. They have to have somebody there that pulls it out within an X amount of time because of flood warnings, and there can't be debris, and that all of this is like a floodplains thing because there is a long list of stuff that we have not enforced for years, because all of that ends up downstream, which is not the whole point of it all.
The ordinance, and there's often all kind of bad information as far as the ordinance, because when I first moved here, I stayed in a fifth wheel. And Pioneer, and the angry woman was very emphatic that the tow vehicle had to stay right there. And I was shocked and amazed, because the trailer and the tow vehicle was too long to fit in the spot. So I was having a hard time figuring out how I was going to accomplish this. But then I soon discovered what it actually was is that the RV had to be movable. You
Right.
couldn't put it up on blocks and take
Right.
the wheels off.
Right.
What about building
Then
a
it
deck?
becomes taxable too. Property.
Want a cop trap?
But, no, I just swallowed wrong.
Well, there it is, if you just-
But a lot of people have this in their head that they can't have all that stuff out, and some of these people they do get carried away, but the wheels are still on their RV and the tow vehicle is still available so they can move it. And yes, it creates issues, but we just learn to deal with it. And when we have a flood on Memorial Day weekend, we start driving through the RV parks announcing over the loudspeaker that, hey, we have a flash flood watch or flash flood warning, and you might ought to stop drinking. You might ought to start thinking about getting your trailer hooked up, and we can't make them do it because we don't have an ordinance that says you can't have a whole bunch of crap outside your RV.
Well, no, I understand that, and so my point is that, and it's pops that I see the most of the time. I'm looking right at it, because it is so visible, because it's not like it's not, there's no fenced in area, it doesn't sit by
'Cause it's
itself,
not the
and so,
luxury
and
oasis
they,
that
and they
promised.
clearly did not develop that RV park the way they came to us and explained it was going to be. And
they
so there's,
sold it and moved on, and we have a new owner.
yeah, exactly.
Jerry?
I can't speak for all the other RV parks, but I do believe at least one other one has similar to policies as to what I have. I require anybody that comes into my park for a month or longer to have their own tow vehicle. And I also require that you don't keep anything other than RV-related items. A picnic table, those type of things, a cooler, a grill, but I don't allow additional garbage or junk outside the RVs.
Rebecca?
So, and to Tony's point about the floodplain specifically, if they're building a deck outside of their RV in the floodway, I would think that that would need to be enforced, that the floodplain rules, right, would need to be enforced.
Okay, guys, I have a suicide handicap ramp. Well, if you say it. Anyway,
Okay.
no, it goes straight down.
I was gonna say, I might need more explanation later.
Well, yeah, that's a nice platform that goes, they got it for me when I got out of the nursing home. So,
Tells you a lot.
Plot thickens.
anyway, I've asked to have someone make it into steps instead of,
A suicide ramp.
a suicide ramp.
Yeah.
But anyway, nobody has, but would not just a platform with some stairs on it be allowed in the floodplain? Jerry?
I don't know.
My understanding, and this is through my insurance company too, they're not to be built in the ground.
Oh, well, mine's
If
not,
it's
it's
a
sitting on top of the
portable,
ground.
Or
Call it
attached.
portable.
It's not attached.
yeah, because once that becomes a permanent structure, and like anything else, it also should become taxable. So there's multiple reasons you can't do
Okay,
some of those
then-
things,
You can
not
drive it back
just
to your
because it's
pickup.
in the floodplain either.
Okay, well, thank you,
But-
because I'm thinking, I've got some room that thing. Rebecca?
I'd like to ask about a specific issue that I see, but I don't want to explicitly identify this person or their property. But it just looks like a scrap metal yard and lots of washing machines outside.
Was discussed just this morning, and yes,
Is that against our ordinances?
yes.
To be
it is
clear?
Trying to be turned into a junkyard, and our code enforcement officer had told me that he had spoke to that subject several times, and he told him he was cleaning it up, but it's been discovered he's just moving
Accumulating.
more stuff into the backyard and then spreading it out, and I told him that today that the time for that was over, and that foot needs to come down, and we need to.
No
'cause it's not-
no more politely seeking compliance.
Correct, but you know, oddly enough, one of the neighbors over there, and I won't mention her name, saw the code enforcement officer over there and flagged him down, and instead of griping about and it's horrid, it looks terrible. I can't believe that I haven't heard from one of y'all about this already, which is exactly what I told the code enforcement officer this morning while we were discussing this. But said neighbor wasn't interested in discussing the horrid status of the yard and all that trash and metal. She just wanted to know how he was doing. Was he okay? Everything all right over there? And that is shocking to me. It's very, very interesting. But,
It doesn't shock me at all.
but yeah, but I was over there to check on, because honestly, this morning I lit out to take some pictures, because there was things that are getting better and things that have gotten worse, and that's one of the things that it started getting a little better and then right back to worse. And some things you have to take pictures of and then refer back to, and
Yeah.
you see that that's something that has gotten much worse, and you know, I've put foot down on that this morning, so I agree that's a serious problem.
Rebecca?
What about the living out of RVs situation?
Yeah, what
Is
about
that being
that?
addressed?
Well, when we can get them caught and admitted to it, you know, it's a 14-day either total or cumulative over the course of a year. but, you know, our ordinance doesn't say hooked up to water and sewer, it says living in. And
That's
That's
subject.
the problem.
it's very, very
Subjective.
subjective. I don't wanna use anybody specifically here sitting at the table, but I'd be hard pressed to prove that our mayor lives in hers 14 days a year. And I know that she lives in one.
Right.
Knowing it and proving it, and, you know, we
And the
fought.
fact that, but that's in an RV park versus in a residential
Well, I'm
area.
just
So,
using that
yeah,
as
but I'm
a-
just
as a-
saying that,
as a
I didn't want it to sound like, yeah, I just wanna make sure.
Sorry, yeah.
Go ahead, Jerry. I thought he was gonna mention
I've
you.
thought through that. How could you prove?
Yeah.
And any of it's gonna take a change in the ordinance. But the only thing that, cause water, being hooked up to water, they could just say, I go in there and clean, I want it on to clean. Electric, for sure, I can understand, because a lot of people that have RVs keep their electric hooked up, just to keep batteries charged. But sewer line, no way, no excuse. If you see somebody that's got a sewer line hooked up to it, I'd be like instant, automatic warning, because I can't think of any justification that you have to have your sewer line hooked up.
Well, most of them, how are they gonna dump? You know, they're gonna have to move it, and the ones I see around town, they're not being moved.
Oh, they just tap into their sewer line.
Yeah, you don't.
And they put up a little connection, and it drains right into their sewer line.
Because you have a clean out. You can just dump
Yeah,
it in your
clean out. Yeah, or your clean out at your house.
Rebecca?
Do we need to maybe like dedicate a different time to discuss the RV situation specifically and how it is addressed in our codes? Oh, like, yeah, like a workshop, yeah.
A workshop. I like workshops.
Really, for the whole
And I-
thing.
and I would certainly love that. I don't like, the young lady neighbor we discussed is one that has a fire burning under her about the RVs, but she thinks everybody's living in every RV that's
In,
in
right.
the city, and I'm not gonna claim that every RV that's not in an RV park is not occupied. But I don't know of any of them that are hooked up to sewer, because I agree with Jerry 100%, that's a big red flag.
Tony?
So yeah, I would like to see us, get that ordinance a little tighter as far as what's considered, I mean, even if they're not living in it, if they're using it as an extension of their house on a regular basis, that to me is living in
Right.
it. I mean, and people will say, well, I just, whatever, but, so the fact that it can maybe we need to talk about how it's properly stored on your property.
Exactly,
yeah.
specifically the parked in the right of way, is
Right.
we've kinda touched on it.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
several of them that are parked in the right of way that, it's very, very subjective.
Just making
Feather-legged is the term we used in the police academy.
Right, so I just want to tail off of that conversation, but also for a workshop, if we get into, talking about what changes we need to make, I would like to bring up animal control, which is probably another big one of the area, but, just overall. I've been involved in some conversations when David was still here and with Lance, and, I know things have been going on, and I'd like Lance to be here for that conversation, cause I know they've improved a lot, but there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been identified that I think we need to.
And between now
Really
and the time we
discuss.
actually do schedule a workshop, y'all can come up with other enforcement issues that you want to discuss in a workshop.
That'd be great, yeah.
Jerry?
Just directed at you more than anything. One that looks extremely obvious, which you I'm sure have seen, at 8th and Maple. Now, I can't see any sewer line hooked up, but you tell me the way, you know where I'm talking.
Oh,
You
yes,
know what I'm
yes.
talking.
Well, it's,
He's got his vehicle
closer
right
to
there, got
Cypress.
2 motorcycles, and I mean, it's like,
and I've sent,
but I don't think he's got a sewer line hooked up. So
I haven't
my
seen a
theory
sewer
on
line.
that wouldn't help you out any.
I've seen, I believe that there's a good chance that one's being used as like an Airbnb. If I had to bet money, I would say that's what's going on.
Yeah.
But finding it or proving it is, I haven't had any luck. I've sent Not only, the nighttime deputy over there several times, you know, that was one thing, right, was there's lights on at night in there, because nobody's generally just gonna routinely leave them on. I don't think somebody's living in that one all the time. I think that's more than likely being used as a vacation rental.
Enough picking on RVs.
And always, if y'all have ideas or concerns or stuff, we don't have to wait for a council meeting to, you know. have
Most of
one
my
these.
concerns, are the reply I get is, yeah, but, and just like, I mean, I agree with you that living, there's certain things in the code that are subjective. I mean, that's the reason a lot of our problems, so, yeah.
Yes, Christine.
I should have said something when Lance was here, but jumping off the bridge signs, we don't, one's gone and the other one's vandalized. You can't hardly read it. And you know me and that bridge are best friends.
We should
And
go
you've
jump
never
off.
jumped off that bridge, have you?
Never. I haven't actually.
I
my
did,
dog-
but the signs weren't there at the time. I was very young.
My dog wouldn't even jump off the bridge. Tried to
That's
get
a
her
long
to.
time ago then. Like a long time.
Alright.
Yeah.
But please, please let me know about this, and I hear, some of these things I hear about on a Sunday afternoon when I'm trying to clean the garage out, and I know that y'all think, well, he just doesn't care about that. But my memory is not what it was 10 years ago, and some of that I blame on the city of Bandera.
Well, I did email Lance about over 2 months ago about it. About there not being any
I'm
signs.
only responsible for my short memory.
I've got, and it just, I'm really, I had a really bad experience the weekend before, or it was Easter weekend at the park. I never go in the park on the weekends ever, and it just seemed like every time I turned around, there was just, you know, there were people sitting on the First Street Bridge with their coolers. They were, you know, leaving their empties there. They'd been there for quite some time. They were jumping off the bridge. They, you know, I saw people, you know, parking outside and going inside without wristbands, and I know. And then when I attempted to go into the park, and it was right at 6 o'clock with my pass, I was on the golf cart, and I was told that it was a long story, but in order to get the person's attention, I had to tell them, you know, that I had my pass and that I was going in. And I said, well, we don't charge after 6 o'clock. And I got the impression that she thought that meant she doesn't work after 6 o'clock. So, because it's like, I mean, you know, I could have gone in with an ice chest full of glass, you know, beer or whatever. It's like, I don't know what our protocol is. But every time I turned around, I mean, I lived in New Braunfels for 12 years. I don't want to be at that level because they're crazy on their parks. But there's got to be something better that we can do on a regular basis to patrol the park and to make it safer and to make it fair. And I really think that there's a way to solve it. Not tonight, but there's a way to solve it.
Well, and to that I have to say that unfortunately, because we're shorthanded, the one that I used to utilize to work extra, say on Easter weekend, now I'm begging and pleading with him to work on the weekend period because we a lot of times don't have anybody.
Yeah.
We also don't have anybody living down there in the park in that RV spot, which I'm also begging and pleading. I've got one officer that, once again, back to my short memory problem, evidently I used to work with at Longview that reached out to me the other day that was in town 2 weeks ago on a motorcycle ride with his wife because his father lives right outside of town. They've never been here before, love the place. I've sent him an application and talked real nice to him. I'm hoping to hear back from him because he's sick of the shootings every day in Longview. And I'm waiting.
Well, we have
hoping-
shootings here, but it's at the gun range.
Yeah, constantly.
Or in city parks.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
All right, but I think the park,
Like-
I think there's a way to get there, but it's just, we're being taken advantage of. And it's, I mean,
Excuse me, Jerry?
Request to be excused, please.
Yes, 8:13, Councilman Russ is leaving the meeting. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Would y'all consider a brief recess,
Trash ordinance.
just long enough for me to go to the bathroom?
I need to go too.
Okay.
8:14, we're gonna recess. 8:18, I'm reconvening the regular session of the city council. Item H, public hearing, discussion and possible action on an ordinance amending Chapter 5, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Bandera Code of Ordinances, adopting updated codes and local amendments. The public hearing, according to our attorney, does not have to be posted in the paper. It's not statutorily required. The amendments were put on the website. They were available here in City Hall. And they went out to you as soon as we got them. I don't know if you'll have a chance to review them, but that's where we are on this. And I really, really urge you, council, to give this some thought and then let's make this happen, because we have outdoor burning which is out of control here in the city. This definitely covers that. That's the big issue for me right now.
I am concerned about the section on outdoor burning. And I agree it needs to be addressed, but I just don't know that if we could maybe just go through this part of it more thoroughly.
What I printed was just the amendments. And then what my understanding is there's more in the actual code that would address all of the issues that we've had recently regarding burning.
Yeah, but it might over-address also.
Well, the TCEQ requirements, they stand everywhere. There's not much you can do about that.
She could have just gave us one.
What brought this outdoor
Then
burning up?
you need to open as a public hearing and state the time, and then close as a public hearing.
Okay, it is now 8:20. I'm opening the public hearing. There's no one present.
And the attorney is available if there's any questions for the local amendments that he provided.
How long do I have to keep this public hearing open with nobody here?
You don't? You just have
Now,
to open it and close it?
8:21, I'm closing the public hearing. Anyway, what brought this up is a fire ordinance, just refers back to the city's burn ban. It has no teeth in it whatsoever. Before 2016, when it was adopted, we had an ordinance that said covered containers, certain distance from structures, different safety precautions for outdoor burning. But it's just going on rampant here in town, and it's dangerous. So that's what brought this whole thing up. For me, was the fire code, the outdoor burning.
Well, we're so condensed here in town. If we had a real fire come,
Absolutely.
it could just really.
But our citizen has been calling the fire marshal, and his response is pretty standard. I have no jurisdiction in the city, however, the TCEQ, the Bandera County says you've got to have 5 acres to burn. That sent an email to a citizen from him.
So is this considered like, so burn barrels or controlled burn, like that, like you can't burn, like if we did this, we couldn't put it in a burn barrel and burn, and you couldn't do what? I mean, what is it changing? Because the amendment
Well,
the amendment doesn't tell me that, because it's in the other stuff. It's in the big long one, right?
The first fire code that was on the last meeting.
Right.
That I had printed for a few copies that I didn't put
I
on my
know.
note.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it, but I.
So when it refers to the authority of the fire chief, who are we talking about?
We don't have the, we don't
I know,
have
but
one,
it's in
right?
this
Yeah, I know.
ordinance.
That's,
And then if you look at, starting, the open burning and recreational fires, portable outdoor fires, one of the things that it says that's, questionable, where did it go? Disposal fires, it's referring to permitting certain types of fires, which we have no structure in place for that. Burning permits, requirements for burning, it's very subjective. Permitted only when wind direction and other meteorological conditions. Like, that's subjective, right? To who's making that call. And then you've got something about if the smoke is going on the road, then you have to have a flag guy out there. Like, that's, there's, it's just.
Darcy.
That's why there really shouldn't be any burning in the city, in my opinion, in a city this size, other than like if you've got.
Your chimney.
I have the little burn thing with the screen over it for my backyard, which I wouldn't use right now, even with the rain and green grass in my backyard.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can use it. We have friends over, you know, and my nieces and nephews making s'mores and stuff like that. Yeah, we want to be able to allow that, but I'd say
Recreation.
burn barrels, heck no. They shouldn't be here in town. People shouldn't be burning trash here in town. I don't want to smell it. I think it's bad for the environment anyways. But, you know,
Well, that is one of the things in the fire code is the household garbage thing.
Yeah.
people do. I smell it.
Sorry.
But-
Go ahead, Jill.
So after the last meeting, this was, Dan stated he's not a fire person, blah, blah, blah. So he went out and got these local amendments for other cities, and just like the last local amendments that you adopted, this is like a starting point, and then you can add to and change. But right now, because we're still on the old fire code, that was the recommendation to
Take it.
adopt the amendments and then make changes to them as you will, but to get us at least up to code to solve some of the problems with burning. And he is available if y'all have questions for him, but, you know, this is something that keeps coming back. And we've had a lot of complaints about burning lately, so this was something that we kind of pushed for him to get us something because we have had calls on this issue.
Darcy.
But then we're gonna expect Will and his folks to enforce this, and
Well, this would give them something to enforce.
as long as
Yeah,
it's well written and easily understood. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't understand writing, but they have a million other things to, you know, keep an eye on too, and you
Well,
know.
they're being called now about fires, so this would at least give them some teeth and something to enforce. And again, as we've said throughout this whole process, we have the Board of Appeals. Should there be anything that's too stringent that, I can't imagine what it would be, because nobody's gonna burn a pile of brush in the middle of, well, they might, but.
I was gonna say,
No, I mean, okay.
don't underestimate.
I know
people's
exactly who
stupidity.
burns a pile of brush.
Yeah.
My backyard neighbor.
Don't underestimate.
And he does it when it's smart, but I mean, he's not a stupid person, so he doesn't do it, but very often. But I mean, but he does. He burns all of his own vegetation from his yard.
And there's somebody on,
Well,
Most generally, that is the problem we have, is people are burning their leaves. They're burning piles of leaves, and the smoke is blowing through somebody's house, and that kind of, that's when we get the complaints about the burning stuff. It's why don't we have an ordinance against burning? We even have ex-city council members that call and swear up and down that when they were on the council, they passed a burn ban. And I've never worked anywhere where there was a city that
think it might
didn't
be
have a ban against burning all your leaves or burning your trash. So to me, it's a little crazy that we don't, especially the size of this town, to be burning your trash in a barrel or, you know.
Or your own vegetation.
Rebecca.
I agree with the ban on burning household garbage or frankly anything, but I don't agree with the ban on burning your yard trimmings and stuff, especially because you could use those for your recreational fire, right? And we don't have
I do too.
a regular monthly brush pickup service like most communities or a lot of communities do have to supplement for this, because what is someone supposed to do with their
we have mulching services at the city. I call them and they take it and mulch, and then we go, once they mulch it, we can go get that mulch and use it for free.
So if I just rake up all my leaves and call them, they'll come get them.
Well, if it's big trees and stuff and they have to bring the mulcher, then they charge you by the hour. If it's
Yeah,
like
not-
tree trimming, but if it's, I don't know what it is,
Just
if
my
it's
leaves.
just
I mean,
like,
I got one of those giant oak trees, and it's just a mess in my yard.
So
So
I
I
do
bag it all and.
I do all of my own, what's it called? Composting. So I have 3 different cycles
Such a
I'm
tree
way too
I do,
hugger.
I'm not a tree hugger, I've never hugged a tree.
I have way too many leaves.
But I have 3 different cycles, so I have one in a barrel that, rotate
So you
from
can
the,
give them to Darcy.
I used to grow worms too, I'm
from
over
the
it.
scrapping and all that.
You
But
can give them to Darcy is what I'm saying.
well, that's what I use. I was telling them about the dog pen in the backyard. I use one for initial dog pen and
Okay,
turn it and all that.
May I
So
say, Council, we're not making any progress
No, we're
with these
not.
conversations. So, could we have actually either table this, pass it, do whatever you want to with it? Rebecca?
A couple of, I would want to table this. A couple of the main things that I have issue with is how much is referring to a fire chief. That's not applicable, to our jurisdiction. And the permitting, we don't have any kind of structure in place for that. So that needs to, if we're gonna do that, we need to kind of create those processes hand in hand. I think this is a little bit of overkill and I would like to trim it back, unless you guys are just gonna burn banning altogether. That's what
So, would it be feasible for us to, I say the word workshop and actually get someone from like the fire department to go over some of this stuff with us and like really make sure we know what would be smart to do or ask for permits for or not or something and get their opinion on burning?
I would like to say not somebody from the fire department because it is a not to knock them. They're freaking fantastic, but it is a volunteer fire department. It's not a full-time job. They don't have as much training as others might. So I'd like to ask that. I love that idea, but maybe we do bring in the county fire marshal, ask that he come and speak with us. I think that would be really beneficial and have his input.
Okay, so could we have an action on this, please, Darcy?
I'd like to make a motion that we table this item until the next
Thank you. Second, Tony,
To the next
Discussion?
what?
whenever.
To the next
all
one
in
ever.
favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item I, discussion of possible action on possible budget workshop dates. We have given you a tentative starting budget calendar. Budget is underway, I'm proud to say. I don't know if we're gonna make that May 13th deadline or proposed deadline to council because Allison is in training this week and then we have, the auditors are in the office the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we may have to just push everything back another week. But what I'm proposing to you is would you consider as needed the first and third Thursdays in June and July, or even July and August when we get down to the very nitty gritty, July, August, and September. At 5:30 or
Okay.
6 o'clock or whatever.
For what days
So
in
it would be
July?
opposite weeks of our council
Yes, ma'am.
on
It's
Thursdays
always Thursday,
instead of
not
Same.
Tuesday.
Same week as what.
For the same week, first and third,
Same week.
because I think EDC is the fourth Thursday, so if we make first and third Thursdays, beginning, and y'all decide if you want to start them in June or July,
Well,
but
June we're already off because the first Tuesday is this, the first Thursday is the second and then the June is this,
This is
yeah. So we're just saying the,
Oh, I'm in
the
July.
Thursday after, the Thursday of the same week of our city
They're the
council
same
meetings.
week.
Okay. I think I'm
I'm,
okay
I'm
with
gonna
that.
agree to it for now, but I haven't filled in my calendar that far ahead.
well, we've always started so far behind, and I am bound
I
and
agree.
determined to get this thing running this year.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna take some work to get there.
So the third Thursday of June, I will be in Houston for the Republican convention.
I don't think she said
It's
June.
not the third
Well,
Thursday,
she
it's gonna
said
be the
June,
fourth
she said
Thursday.
June
It's gonna be
or
the fourth
July,
Thursday.
starting
No.
in June or July.
First and third
Because-
Thursdays. July.
No,
I
no.
thought you said July,
No,
August.
But
hold on. The first, she said the same Thursday of the city council meetings, and in June, the first Thursday
I
is
thought
not
she
the.
said July.
She said, or possibly
I-
June,
yeah, I'm just
anywhere.
throwing things out. We
She's
don't
just
have
throwing
to
it
start
out
in
there.
June,
All I'm
but-
saying is the Thursday after the council, the same week of the council meetings, but we'll have a second meeting each week on the Thursday. And I think we
Okay.
should start them in June.
Okay.
Because
I hear
if we
ya.
need to
Works for
skip
me.
one, because if we need to skip one, we skip it. We don't feel
Right.
like we were in the crunch.
Works for me.
So then y'all would want to start on the 9th
The ninth.
Yes,
and then the 23rd.
right.
Okay, I'm good with that because I'll be.
Are we
gone the
starting
6th.
these at 6 p.m. or at 5?
5:30?
I can do 5:30.
Come on,
5:30.
man.
5:30.
All right, well, I'm gonna go drink wine first. Cause that's a Cork Poppers, and I really wanna go to that one.
Well,
That's okay.
you can be absent once, but anyway, council, I wanna make this happen, I wanna
Yeah.
get this moving. We've got a lot of discussions, a lot of public input I'd like to have this year in public hearings, that sort of thing.
The first one in July,
Which is the 7th.
yes, I
And we can
will.
adjust the dates.
I
as
will
we go.
definitely
Yeah,
miss.
we could
Yeah,
adjust as we
that
go
one I will
along,
definitely miss,
council.
cause I'm gonna fly out to Oregon that day.
Yeah, we can adjust it as we go along, we don't have to meet, but
Right.
that, we have a general idea that we're gonna do the first and third Thursdays, beginning in June,
No,
No.
no.
except for the 9th.
Right.
No, the Thursday of the council weeks, we're having 2 meetings.
Right,
so that's the
except
9th.
for June.
The council, the weeks of the council meeting, we're having a second meeting on Thursday.
Okay, works
So,
for me.
yeah,
So second and fourth
Let's do that.
Thursday in June.
In June.
Well, the fourth Thursday in June won't work because that's EDC.
We don't need to be there.
Can I just send out a schedule and then everybody can reply
So
to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we could just
How
skip
about
that
that?
Thursday.
Yeah.
That's early in the
Yeah,
process anyway.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay?
Well done.
Thank you, council.
I was
The
like,
June
that's
9th will be
clear-
the first one, the rest is to be determined.
Clear
Yeah.
as mud.
All right. Item J, discussion of possible action on a logo for the new Mulberry elevated storage tank.
A giant vulture.
The people that are building this tank want to know what the city wants on this tank, and they want to put it on the tank while it's on the ground.
What a novel idea.
We still have some time to think about it, but I want y'all to start, I'd like to just see Cowboy Capital of the World on it in big blue letters. Something really simple that's
Okay.
not gonna be, but that's, we'll take a vote on it later, but they've been asking for a couple of weeks, and I've just flat forgot to put it on.
Where's
The
that
agenda.
elevated, where's it going? Down.
Mulberry.
Mulberry, right. Oh, yeah, it sounds right.
So, any off the top of your head input?
I like that with like the bucking cowboy with the like the hat up that we have on half the stuff.
How about a bucking cowgirl?
Okay, love it. You know I love it.
Well, again, this is not creating a new city logo, this is just
Right.
some sort of insignia to go on
Yep.
the tank.
It's also a neighborhood, you know, it's not like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not considered
I
city
like the
center.
oval, I like the oval that's kind of standard that the kind of the CBB uses,
Yeah,
you know, the one that's sort of all over.
I can put a couple of ideas out for the next meeting and then y'all can look at them.
Excellent.
I just didn't have time.
Send in your ideas, don't wait for us to
Yeah.
put something, and
Okay.
please let's not have another public contest, because we'll never
No.
get this thing figured out. Okay, if that's enough on that subject, item 7 is closed session. Item A, the city council will meet in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551074 personnel to discuss and receive an update from Public Safety Solutions LLC on the city administrative job process. Item B, the city council will meet in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551072 real property to discuss and receive an update on land acquisition for the wastewater treatment plant relocation. It is now 8:37. I am recessing the regular meeting. 8:52. I'm reconvening the regular session of the city council. Item 9 is action following closed session. On item A, the city council will meet in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074 to discuss and receive an update from Public Safety Solutions on the city administrator's search project. Rebecca?
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to put a close date on the posting for city administrator as May, what'd you say?
Friday
Tony?
was the 13th.
The 13th.
Yeah, either the,
Thank you.
either the 6th or 13th, no choice.
May 13th.
2022.
yes.
Okay, second, Tony. Discussion. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item B, the city council will meet in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551072 real property to discuss and receive an update on land acquisition for the wastewater treatment plant relocation. Action, council? No action at this time on item B. Item 9, request and announcements. Item A, request by council to place the item on an agenda. Anything you got pressing, council? Yes, Rebecca.
One is, I'd like to discuss, EDC's financial obligation to Heritage Park. Another is I'd like to discuss engineering services for wastewater line issues related to Riverside RV Park.
Okay,
I should say, and Public Works Services as well.
okay.
And then I would like to discuss the salary for the position of city administrator.
Okay.
I'm gonna wanna do the funding opportunities for wastewater at some point, but I'll just save that for later.
Yeah, that sounds more like a workshop than a budget.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, anybody else? Tony,
We need to find time for the workshop for all the code enforcement.
it's over here.
Oh, okay.
I got it. Anything else?
Announcements, are we there?
What'd you say?
Announcements, are we there?
Oh, I thought you said that.
Announcements, are we there yet? Yes,
Today was the closing of early voting for the 2 constitutional amendments. But, voting day is tomorrow, which is weird,
Saturday.
I know.
voting day
Not
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Oh, sorry.
Voting day is
Saturday.
Saturday, right.
I'm
What?
sorry, 'cause I
Yeah,
took the
go
day
ahead.
off. I'm sorry, you can still early vote then.
No, it was weird this time. They had certain dates, it was blotchy. And I thought today was the date and it was yesterday, the second, not the third.
So I voted
I
today,
know, but
so
it's like
look at the
conversation.
constitutional amendments, yeah. Look at the constitutional amendments, but you can vote all day Saturday. I won't be at the Remower this time, cause I'll be on the ballot again, but, I'll be at the bus barn.
Yes, and this one,
There's only 3 places to vote this time, so people will have to look to see where to go vote. All of us will vote here as usual.
and there's one about property tax on there, so
There
you
is.
need to vote.
And it takes you this long. I voted
Yes.
today, it literally takes you that long.
Yes.
It's a quick one.
But property tax is a thing, you need to vote.
Yep, it's important.
So glad that newspaper's here.
Any other announcements?
No.
They've been
I'm
running.
Motion
Save my
adjourned.
writing off. Moved to adjourn.
Rebecca, second, everybody, Darcy, discussion, all in favor, 8:56.